Can someone share to all the groups, please, real quick? That hasn't automatically shared.
What am I doing?
Oh, there we go. I will.
Seriously, Kat? You're gonna do this now?
Are we live in SuperGeeks on Facebook? Are we live in SuperGeeks on Facebook?
Yes, we are.
We are on the page.
Yes,
Can
we
share
are.
into
Hello.
the group?
All right, want me to share it over to Axum out of there too?
Share. We're live on Twitch and live on YouTube.
Fucking Shrek and lower deck.
It's Omega J. That the channel?
Yep. And make sure you put a spoiler tag, I guess, if you're putting on places that frowns on spoilers, so we don't get yelled at.
Spoiler alert.
Spoilers.
Spoiler alert.
It's been a long time since we've gotten to hear that live.
Don't
Casey.
chew on my cables.
There you go, my man. Just for you.
Carl has missed that.
I really have.
Hey, do it again. You're off my lap.
That's what she said.
That's Jason. That's my. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, make the announcement.
That was such a tease.
You people are exhausting.
We're live, kids.
That's what she said.
Yeah,
All
we
right.
are live.
Are we ready to roll?
Yes,
No.
we are.
Maybe.
Okay.
If
We're
if
live.
Dean's okay. Are you okay if I do this?
Apparently, our fate is in the hands of a cat. Sorry, pause.
Okay, you're getting out of the lap now. Come on. Come on.
That's what she said.
That's so much South Georgia right now.
Ugh.
Hey, that show After Dark has nothing on Ross's cat.
Yeah, it's turned
would
off
agree
my
with that.
computer during a stream once. Not fun.
All
right, let's roll it.
All right.
All right.
Okay. He's frozen.
He's frozen.
Oh, there you are.
I am?
You were for a second.
We're frozen.
Oh, jeez. Lowered Expectation Reviews, Episode 3, Temporal Edict, featuring New York Times bestselling author Dayton Ward. All right, here we go. Lowered Expectations Review, Episode 3, Temporal Edict, featuring special guest star New York Times bestselling author Dayton Ward. All of this and more tonight. Lowered Expectations Review, Episode 3, Temporal Edict, featuring Justin.
That's your cue, Justin.
Justin, wake up!
He passed out.
And now.
Oh my God!
You can't-
SuperGeeks.
We'll fill in the real Super Geeks.
Super
And
Geeks.
welcome to this
The
week's
real
episode
Super
of the Real Super Geeks. My name is Carlos Pedraza. It is August 21st already. How did that happen? And we have a special guest tonight. Dayton Ward rejoins us again for the Star Trek segment of our show. Welcome, Dayton.
Hello.
And let's do a quick hello from my fellow hosts, starting with the man we like to call the Eyebrows of Doom and our announcer, Ross Bullock. How are you, Ross?
Glad to be back after a week of getting a taste of the apocalypse. Here in the Midwest, we
you
had
were
a
a victim of the derecho.
Yes, the Direct Show knocked out power for an entire week. So I've been catching up on a few hobbies, reading a few books, and this lovely little thing came in.
Oh, nice.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I got that.
Product.
Plus, the one with there's coffee in that nebula.
Oh, I like.
All right. And hailing from Las Vegas, Nevada, Sin City, is the man himself, Shawn P. O'Halloran. Shawn, how are you? And most importantly, are you wearing pants this week?
No pants at all. Not at all.
No pants. We have a guest. We have a special guest.
Well,
And you think he's wearing pants too?
Right.
Well,
That's the thing.
I'll ask him when I get to him.
But here's the thing: Dayton would not respect me if I was not true to myself. I mean, we know this for a fact. Dayton often encourages my pantless antics and my destruction of toilets globally. So let's be.
Okay. Well, welcome to tonight's show, Shawn, and let's move to our next host, and that is our special guest host, Casey Shasky from San Jose, California. How are you, Casey? I'm not so used to seeing you.
What's happening?
I don't know.
I'm
It's
good.
chaos. It's chaos in the Super Geeks.
What's happening is
It's
right.
crazy tonight. It's crazy. Woo!
You doing good?
I'm doing good. No fires quite close to
Quite
us,
yet.
so we're okay. No need to evacuate.
I used to live in Santa Cruz, I think you know, and I would be in danger if I was still there today. So I'm glad I'm in a wet place, Seattle. So let's go to our next co-host, and that would be our stalwart producer, Justin. Justin, are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm
good.
back. I don't know what happened. Everything lagged out on me for a second, right when I was supposed to say real Super Geeks.
Well, we filled in for you, so no problem.
Thank you.
And
So
hailing from
You're fired. We'll take it over next week. That's it.
no, he does all the work none of us would do very well.
No shit. You're a kid. Oh my God.
And hailing from Denver, Colorado, also my former home, Travis Linton. Travis, how are you doing this week? You just got back from a week camping in Nebraska.
It's just good.
Did it rejuvenate you?
And I kind of got eaten alive by the black flies out there, but I came back and my state's on fire, and there's emotional baggage just kind of dumped on me, which I don't really care for. But you know what? Oh well, it happens, and making the best of it. And I'm excited to be back. It's nice to see all your lovely faces again.
You too, Travis. And I would just like to point out that tonight you are on fire. So, and finally, last but not least, our regular co-host is Jason Kovalik from Salt Lake City. Jason, how are you this week?
It's rather smoky out here in the Salt Lake Valley. All you nice people from California are sending your smoke our way, so our air quality's in the dump.
We love you, Jason.
I know.
By the way, Brandon wants to know if Shawn even owns any pants.
I do.
No.
He does. I've seen him wearing them.
I have 3, but they're only for funerals and occasionally for work.
He has one pair of pants. He dyes them for every special occasion.
That's why he needs the time in between for them to dry.
No, that's-
So
yeah.
let's welcome our special guest tonight, Dayton Ward, New York Times bestselling author, who's going to be talking with us about his projects and giving us his take on this week's Lower Decks in our Lower Deck Pectations segment, which we're going to be starting off with. Dayton, how are you doing today? You're in, is it Kansas City?
I'm in Kansas City, yeah. The
Kansas City,
area.
that's what I thought.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, is the show still on? I mean, we've been introduced for just like a half an hour. So are we still on?
Thanks,
People
Carlos.
jabber.
I'm in Kansas
Some
City.
of us were on time.
I'm actually
Yeah.
outside the city limits. I'm in a small city called Lee Summit, which is to the southeast of the metro.
Oh, I have friends who used to live in Lee Summit. So, yeah. All right. Well, shall we dive in, or do you want to tell us anything more?
Yeah, tell us about your projects. Tell us what's going on, Dayton, please.
I can't tell you about anything. I signed an NDA.
Right. He can only talk about his past projects.
Right. Talk about those.
How
That's
many
fine.
how many Star Trek novels have you written now, Dayton, and in which series, relating to which of the series?
I have written, I think, 27. I'm about to start 27. I'm about to start number 27. I've written across the board. I've got original series, Next Generation, several spin-off literary series that we've done, like Star Trek Vanguard, which is a companion series to the original show, and some of the other knockoff literary spin-offs that we've done over the years. Mostly original series and Next Gen, though.
You are also the author of the Star Trek Kirk Fu Manual, are you not?
I am responsible for foisting that upon an unsuspecting world. Yes, I did that.
Well, some of the world appreciates it. Some of the world appreciates it. But actually, it's great you're with us tonight for this particular episode of Lower Decks because we saw a lot of Kirk Fu in this episode of Lower Decks. So we'll be able to get your expert color commentary on the goings on as far as that's concerned. Double fisted punch.
Everybody was Kirk Fu fighting.
Yeah, there you go. We provide our own soundtrack, as you can see, Dayton. So let's start off with episode 3 of Lower Decks in our Lower Deck Expectations review segment of the podcast. So this week's episode featured a lot of Mariner, a lot of Ransom, the first officer. Boimler apparently became known for all history and more. Let's start off with a quick, did you like it, did you not like it? Who wants to go first? Jason. A thumbs up from Jason. Travis?
I'm looking forward to the future of Star Trek convincing me that Miles O'Brien is the #1 protagonist of all time.
I actually heard that
a doubt in your minds.
I actually heard it should be Rom. He saved the galaxy with those gravitic mines outside the wormhole. Casey, how about you? Thumbs up.
Dug it.
Shawn, you dug it?
Thumbs up, baby.
I loved it. I love each episode is getting better and better. It's just I've dreamed of this show coming to life. I got to be honest. And the thing about the O'Brien part, which was so funny, they didn't show a statue of him like the gravitic mind. They showed it the fucking transporter on the Enterprise,
like the comic.
Taken right out of the comic.
Actually shared the comic link on Twitter and said, "Okay, this is where we got this idea from." And I mean, if you haven't seen that comic, it's hilarious.
Yeah,
O'Brien Network, the name of it.
Oh yeah, that's right. Where it's just mundane O'Brien shit. That's right. Yes, I've seen that. Yes. So so that was brilliant. I'm liking this show more and more every week. It seems to be a little bit different each week, but keeping to its roots. And it's like hard to say, how does a show with 3 episodes have roots already? The show does. The show's already got a pretty good job.
Because it digs deep into Star Trek lore, as we'll see on a couple of notes in this particular episode. But we'll get to that in a minute. Yes, he takes notes, Dayton.
Well, I mean,
Ross.
If you think the show has roots now, wait till they do the clip show next week. Oh, I'm kidding.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Remember when?
Hard at work. And Ross, where do you weigh in?
We're getting shades of gray in the 4th episode. Oh shit! What happened? What happened?
It could be worse.
So long as it's not 50 Shades Gray.
Oh, it could be Code of Honor 2.
Oh God.
Well, okay, so I liked it. I really liked this episode. It's see that we can have stories where Bulmer and Mariner are not the pair anchoring the episode, that they can both have their separate plots and it still works. It's a relief not to have it's a relief not to have Mariner kind of be, as she has been, just constantly one-upping the whole time, but instead trying to one-up the first officer instead, which is perfect. Loved it.
Yeah, and it didn't work. Is what the best part of it was. That's what was so fun.
Yeah, what it normally does with her. Justin, you're last, and we're gonna go to Dayton to give us a more detailed look at his opinion to start us off. Go ahead, Justin.
Well, I thought it all flowed together. Like, we all got our wish that this wasn't going to be another Mariner saving spoiler episode. It was actually Boiler saving everybody at the end, which was kind of cool. The little Easter egg at the end was hilarious. And who would have thought Miles O'Brien was going to pop up? I mean, just out of nowhere, they just threw him in there, it seemed like. And then the music on this episode was spot on. I mean, they even had a lot of the TOS fight music cues in there.
Fight music, dude.
You gotta love this. You gotta love it. I mean, there's I couldn't find any flaws in this episode. So yeah, I hope they keep this pace up.
Wow,
Here
a
on out.
flawless episode. Dayton,
Flawless.
over to you, because again, this particular episode featured a lot of Kirk Fu, which you are a well-known expert of. You don't have to there you are, little plug for you.
Nice.
What did you think of a Kirk Fu centered? There was a lot of fighting in this episode. And did it resonate with you? What worked, what didn't work for you?
I thought it was funny. I mean, it seemed like he only had the one move though. It's like he's like the white guy at the dance club that's only got one dance move. It's just that little side straddle hop to the side, God, but it works for him, right? He's got the double clutch going, and that's his only move. If the guy can figure out how to counter that, he's. But it worked for him. I thought it was funny. I think the show is starting to settle down into its groove now. The first episode for sure was overloaded with everything as it introduced everything, and after that, it's starting to really find its footing. So I think you're going to be surprised by you're going to have fun with what's coming in the later episodes. It's going to be a lot of fun watching them explore the other characters too. So
You sound like you know something.
Yeah.
I don't know anything. I signed an NDA.
Do you know a
nothing.
thing or two about a thing or two?
There's a show on next week called Lower Decks. That's what I've heard.
Oh,
Ah.
spoilers. Yeah, I love that as we were worried about last week, Justin, you pointed out Mariner saving everything every episode. She was quite literally prevented from doing that by having her foot stabbed with a battle blade. So
That was great. That was great.
my favorite part was when she went, "That's kind of hot,"
Right?
and then he said it about her.
And
at the end.
Gary O'Connell voices this guy so well. I mean, we gotta get him in his own live action show. I mean, we gotta get him on live action at least once.
Well, I mean, he's
Sliders.
he's good at what he does.
It's
Let's not
correct.
fuck it up. Let's just not fuck it up.
Yeah.
But it's like Hayden when he ripped off his shirt, because of course I'm watching with my kids because they actually love this show, and Hayden goes, "Holy crap, he's ripped!"
He's not ripped. He's just drawn that way.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, what I liked about the whole Boimler plot, because Boimler saves the day, but when you look at it in context, Boimler saving the day meant Boimler basically stopped a bunch of punks doing graffiti. That's basically what he did. So, I mean, it's not much of an accomplishment, but hey, it's something.
Well, I love their treatment, and they've been doing this episode by episode. They take some bit of Star Trek lore that's sort of, never had the rock turned over to see what's underneath, and we're seeing that happen in episode after episode. This week, of course, was the infamous buffer time, the time estimates that lower officers give to upper officers to. So they can, have a martini. How was it? She had it iced? No, was it margarita?
Margarita.
Yeah.
It was a margarita.
One less margarita
Yeah.
a day.
So can we talk about the fact that no one at all thought that maybe it would be a good idea to disable alcoholic beverages in the brig? Nobody thought.
I would think that that's exactly the place you'd want alcoholic beverages.
Okay.
Yeah. Give them something to do. They're in the brig. Get them drunk. They pass out. Shut up.
Yeah,
They're less of a hassle that way. I mean, where are they going to go?
it's part of the Geneva Conventions, frankly.
It's happy hour in the brig. That makes total sense.
It's always happy hour in the brig. All right.
The Scotty legend of overestimating repair times. I mean, it was put on full display here, and how and the relevance to Starfleet. But I think here's the thing. I was thinking about this because I know guys in the military talk about this and how this is like literally what happens in the military, and then and how
Yep.
and how literally you get a commanding officer with a bug up their ass that goes and fucks the whole thing up, right? And nodding of heads. Yes.
This is where Dayton knows. Dayton knows. This is the question for Dayton.
And I was
So
thinking,
does Ross.
you know what? In any hierarchical industry, because I remember this in retail when I was in retail, the exact same fucking thing would happen. It's like, oh, your sales numbers are down. Like they upend the whole apple cart because
Oh my God! Same thing in restaurants.
because some district manager has a bug up his back because he's got to report to his regional manager why his sales were down by 2%, you know? And it's the same type of shit. It doesn't matter. Anything where you have a hierarchical structure, that's going to happen. It's like, and
the difference there, Shawn, is you can go home at the end of the day and said district manager doesn't have complete control of your life.
Life. You're living in the same space you are. That's right. That's a good point. Yeah.
Dayton, did the episode resonate with you as a vet?
Oh, that's common. I mean, the thing I love about this show is it's basically The Office in space. I mean, the stuff that they talk about, like buffer time. If you've ever worked in corporate America, you know about padding your hour sheet. You know, I don't know if anybody has ever done this, but when I used to be a software development, you had what you call direct hours and indirect hours. The direct hours are what you charge your client. And the indirect hours are what you did everything else, meetings, training, all the stuff you couldn't bill a client for. And we literally, I kid you not, one day the vice president of our division called an all hands meeting. So we're talking 500 plus people in an auditorium, and for 3 hours talked about the necessity of charging more direct time to our clients.
Was that 3 hour meeting charged to a client?
Oh, no, that was all indirect time. So 1,500 man hours. Indirect time, okay? And we're all looking at each other like we need to go drinking after this meeting because that's the only way this is going to make any sense. That is literally, hand to God, that's what happened. So I knew I was on the downhill slide of my corporate career when I started going to meetings like that. So,
Dayton, I'm curious, which of the? Oh, go ahead. I'll ask my question.
Go ahead. What you got?
I was going to ask you, which of the characters do you most resonate with or identify with?
Man, I don't know yet. Not Boimler. That dude's just got bad luck written all over him. I don't know that I resonate with them just yet. They're still finding their footing on the show. There's probably a little bit of everybody so far. I mean, I love Mariner. I think she cracks me the hell up. So as far as being a smart ass, I probably identify with Mariner. There's an episode coming up where she sasses off to the captain and she starts doing, don't you give me the sarcastic Vulcan salute. That's me. I used to get in trouble for mouthing off all the time at work. I had a file that was pretty thick. So character flaw. So I don't know yet. I don't know which one of the characters really resonate with me.
Do we think that we saw the beginning of a Ransom Mariner romance here?
I hope not.
Or is this a one-off?
Oh, I hope not.
Casey, you're shaking your head. What do you think?
I don't think so. I think it's a one-off. You got to, throw a little bit there into the narrative. And that's like, nah, this would change things quite a bit.
You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of that episode where, and I forgot the name of it, of Next Generation, where that alien makes everybody lose their memories and O'Halloran and Riker hook up. That's what that reminds me of. It's it just does not make sense whatsoever. No, I don't see that at all. No.
Okay, you guys are not fans of that particular.
It would make for some fun tension, but I don't see it actually becoming an actual relationship. Fraternization notwithstanding.
Well, I was thinking about the fraternization part too. Yeah.
It's like Shawn wearing pants. We don't think it's really going to last long. It might be a one-off.
Exactly. Pants and I don't have a particularly strong relationship.
Are you kidding? He does most shows naked.
Pants and me is a attraction. That's it.
But could you imagine the amount
throughout the series?
Could you imagine the humor and the self-loathing we'd get from Mariner if she did hook up with him?
Oh yeah.
But let's talk about another relationship that I think may be developing, and not romantic, obviously, but we see an awful lot of Boimler getting FaceTime with the captain. Is that something you guys expect to continue? I mean, he was actually pretty frank with her.
And go ahead, Travis, please.
I'd imagine that the friendship between the captain and Boimler probably going something that continues. When I saw the first episode and saw this episode, like, it very much kind of cemented in my head that there's probably going to be some relationship there, especially since Boimler, hoping to one day be a captain. And I mean, yeah, we saw Mariners basically point herself as his mentor in a way, but I mean, he definitely he seems to be getting more like FaceTime with the captain in terms of like, well, I mean, around the ship, and like she relies on him as far as like, reports on what's going on decks and whatnot that way. If that makes any sense. I'm stuttering.
His reports, which are, by the way, not entirely accurate so far. How about the rest of you guys? Other characters that you identify with? No one identifies with anybody?
Mariner's my first cartoon crush since Princess Allura when I was a kid.
Well, that is very brave of you to admit that, Jason. I salute you.
I'm with him. Mariner's hot. And I'm feeling weird about the whole thing. It's like Bugs Bunny in a girl's costume type thing. It's a little weird.
I wasn't going that far,
Bugs
Shawn.
Bunny pulled it off, man. Come on.
About all of this, got to be honest.
Bugs Bunny, the RuPaul before RuPaul.
Fucking A. Yeah. But no, it's I mean, look, go ahead, Travis. Go ahead.
Sorry. Am I the only one who's going to say just how fucking brilliant Tahana is?
The actor.
I'm looking at a bunch of blank faces.
You're talking about I'm having a little hard time hearing you a bit too, though. So we were talking about the actor.
No, I'm talking about Tahana, the Cation doctor.
Oh, the Cation doctor. Yeah.
Yeah. She's outstanding. She's a blast. We need more of her.
They don't give her very many lines, but everyone is a zinger.
Exactly.
And Son in the chat says she identifies with the Stabolian.
Of course.
Yeah, it's like the Arcasian doctor that reminds me of why am I drawing complete blank? The engineer from season 2, played by Trick Notaro on Discovery. What the hell is her name?
Jet Reno.
Jet Reno, yeah.
Jet Reno. She reminds me of Jet Reno came back as a cat doctor. That's it right there. That's what I'm trying to get at.
As a cat doctor. Okay.
And then Mark says we need a Cerritos reference in Picard, like a Jerry O'Connell ransom log entry.
Well, what I took one of my big takeaways from this episode is that the first 2 episodes, I mean, Mariner kind of established this notion that all the command officers are complete bozos and nothing happens without us here down in lower decks, and that we're the best, rah, rah, rah. And Ransom very adeptly flipped that on its head by stabbing her in the foot and then going and kicking that thing's ass.
Well, Ransom was once lower decks too. He wasn't always this big buff, just ego size the ship first officer. He was lower decks once too.
Let me see your scars. Let me see. You know I don't have any scars.
I love that right at the ending where Mariner told Ransom, "No, I'm not going to report you," because he thought he was screwed. That he was going to have to be put on trial for what he did and everything like that. She's like, "Nah, I ain't going to tell on you." And then he throws her in the brick.
Yeah, he one-ups her and he gets her thrown in the brick, dick.
So here's a question for you,
I'm
Dayton.
going to my favorite place.
Here's a question for Dayton. When Lower Decks was proposed, it was a first for Star Trek, not being animated, but being a comedy. Is that paying off? Do you think we'll see more comedy Star Trek?
I think it's an experiment right now. I don't know that we're all going to get a rig rush of other Star Trek shows that are pure comedy. I think this is very much in its own space right now. But right now it's getting a lot of, it seems like the reaction is mostly positive. There are some hardcore folks that don't like it, and I appreciate that. But it seems like for most casual viewers and a lot of fans like us, it's working. They're having fun with it, not poking fun at it. I think that's the important distinction. Is they're not being insulting or denigrating towards Star Trek. They are saying the same types of jokes or telling the same kinds of jokes that we would tell if we were each, across the table from each other in a bar at a convention or something, or
Right.
online or whatever. It's the same kind of humor. It's the same kind of thing I do on social media every day. I make some kind of crazy, stupid Star Trek joke, and these guys just get paid to do it, bastards. So
that's not to mention in your books.
Right, but I mean, it's the same kind of silliness that we all engage in from time to time. So it's not that different.
Yeah,
I guess.
Go ahead, Dave. I'm sorry.
No, they get paid for it. That's all. That's the only distinction, bastards. So.
To be fair, though, like if you think about Mike McMahon, how long did he write season 8 TNG tweets and not get paid for it?
Right. Well, then he got the book.
Book out of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Which I just picked up, by the way. It's amazing. But it's funny because I think when you have been a fan of this franchise, as long as we have been fans, and as long as Mike McMahon's been fans of the franchise, you get to a point where you've seen every single episode so many times that the narratives, the stories, the characters, that's we've already absorbed that. So we start noticing the other details. And when you start really looking at the other details, it starts becoming very funny when you start nitpicking about this. There's just some absurd shit that goes on, and it's all part of the complete package of the whole thing that makes it so enjoyable. It's great because my kids, even for example, they pick up on the goofiness, especially of the original series. Because imagine being born in 2010 or 2009 and having your first experience with Star Trek be the original series. I mean, looking back on that compared to what they're used to. Okay?
Space Lincoln.
Yeah, like that, right? Exactly. And why is there a big hole in the Gorn costume? What's going on there? All this kind of goofy shit that they pick up on. That and it's like, and it's quite often even with like Next Generation and the B&B era shows that they pick up on things that I hadn't even picked up on. That's quite humorous. But this is it's all again part of the bigger picture of the franchise. I think it's something to be celebrated, not to be, Star Trek doesn't always have to be so serious. Life is funny. There's so many comedic episodes throughout the entire franchise that we can refer to, whether it's the
Tribble episode.
Thank you, Trouble Tribbles or Trials and Tribulations.
And the 30th anniversary episode.
Yes, thank you, Hayden.
Hayden has got a better knowledge than you.
Maybe he read my 30 funniest episodes list.
You've got a piece of the action plus every single Ferengi episode and Deep Space Nine that you can.
Little green men.
Yeah, I mean,
that's so fun.
Star Trek is, it's great because in that regard that there is so much of that, and there is, again, even when they're trying to be serious, there's goofy shit that we as fans pick up on, and
I can't hear what's going on.
I know it's okay. You'll be all right.
We can't, Hayden. Thank you, bud.
We love you, Hayden.
All right, yeah, out with Shawn, in with Hayden. Let's go. Substitute. Let's go. Switch out.
Yeah, absolutely. Switch out now.
We need to know though, is Hayden wearing pants?
Nope.
Oh,
Like father, like son.
There you go.
The dingleberries are dingling.
All right.
Well, on that awkward note. So.
The critical reception to Lower Decks seems to be improving, I think, week by week overall. Vulture, for example, gave it, I think, 4 stars out of 5, which they're usually pretty snarky about things. I was a little surprised to see it that high. Do you think the critics are actually going to turn around on this one?
I think so. I think the show is quality. Last week I kind of went on a mini rant about the similarities between the plot of the first and second episode. So if they continue that way, then that will be challenging for me to continue to really want to watch it. But this episode really kind of demonstrated something very different, very unique. It's charming. If you like Star Trek, it's Riot. It is steeped in the universe that everybody loves, is that Berman era And it's funny because I enjoy watching Mike McMahon skewer it for all the areas that it should be skewered, but then also pay reverence to the good stuff. So, I'd like to see Rolling Stone's printer retraction. We'll see.
And Son says, at least Shawn doesn't look like Santa. Then it will be Jingle Balls.
Bells. She said bells.
Bells.
You said ball.
You said balls.
I choose to hear Jingle Balls. It's funnier.
On the note of the critics coming around, I didn't check a critical reception until a few days ago, honestly. And today I was thinking about it, and I've just come to the conclusion that I just don't really care about critical reception as far as the critics in Star Trek anymore, mainly because the more I think about it, I don't know if Star Trek will ever really be a critical acclaimed it has its place. Star Trek is iconic for a reason, but I don't think it'll ever be a critics show, if that makes any sense. And especially Lower Decks, because one of my personal criticisms toward the show that might get a few people raising their eyebrows at me is that I do believe that the Easter eggs and constant continuity nods get very distracting at times. I do believe it was better this episode than it was the last couple episodes, but I mean, if I were completely new to Star Trek and I was watching Lower Decks for the very first time and getting bombarded with, Mariner swinging around this blade while pushing around this cart full of items from previous episodes, or constantly referencing Kirk, or constantly seeing Jack Branson constantly double fist punching whatever, I honestly would be very lost. It feels distracting at times, but that's just one of my personal criticisms of the show. But
I actually agree with you on that one. They sometimes go a little bit overboard with things that, I mean, when they actually fit with the flow of the story, I'm all for it. But I remember the line that stood out for me was, "What is this, Kirk in the 2260s?" And I was like,
Great line.
"Wait a minute, what?" Anyway, so I've seen some of that too, but it's not perfect. But I laughed out loud more at this episode than I have the first two.
yes, same here. This was a much better episode than episodes 1 and 2. And why is it centered on me? This is get the camera away from me.
Justin's in charge of that.
Justin, clock out for a second.
They didn't want me to share this, by the way.
Hey, my son has that too.
Let's talk a little bit about the far future. The little tag at the end of the show where we discover that what was it they called it? The Boimler factor?
The Boimler effect.
Yeah.
I've been writing on Memory Alpha for the past 3 days. I am just locked in on this show right now.
Okay. The Boimler effect actually survives far into the future. I came across one article on the web this week that was talking about the impact on canon of the Boimler effect. But it was kind of intriguing seeing the far future. I noticed there was a wee Borg sitting in the in the class. Did anyone else notice that?
Yes, I did.
Little Borg
and a couple of Ferengi.
Yeah, and some Ferengi.
And occasion.
So
That
Little
scene
kitten.
reminds me of the. Are you guys familiar with the old Planet of the Apes movies?
Oh yeah,
The old ones.
I saw those
Yep.
a very long time ago.
There's a scene at the end of the 5th one, Battle for the Planet of the Apes, where they're all talking about. Basically, it's a group of kids standing in front of an ape in the far future, and they talk about what happened in the previous, centuries. And there's a statue of the lawgiver, who's Caesar, or there's a statue of Caesar, the ape, who was the character in the last couple of movies, and it's the same scene. If these kids are all standing there looking at O'Brien, like he's the lawgiver, he's the guy that's going to save. That's what I got out of it immediately.
And
He was the lawgiver, wasn't he?
Yeah.
That was a
Wasn't the
laugh
lawgiver,
out
but it
loud
was-
joke right there.
Yeah, I
The
thought it was
most
funny because that's.
The most
Yeah, I mean-
important individual in all of Starfleet, not an officer,
Well, it's also, I think it's that, but it's also, if you remember the Voyager episode, which I think is a very good episode of Voyager, Living Witness.
Oh
Yes,
yeah, that was a
great
great
episode.
episode. Yep.
That was wonderful.
And the same thing happens throughout that episode, and of course at the end, and it really comes down to it's like, it shouldn't be this deep for a cartoon, but it really is the same kind of concept here. That the way the people in the future interpret the historical effects. What's so funny about this is that the Boimler effect, and I wrote this down verbatim, so named after the what is it? What was it?
You wrote this? You wrote this and you can't even read it?
I can't read my own handwriting. So named after the laziest, most corner-cutting officer in Starfleet. When the reality of it is, that's not Boimler at all. I mean, that's why that's so funny, because that's entirely the opposite of what his character is, yet that's how history remembers him. So that's why I thought it was hilarious. So, and well, of course, with one of the great birds of the galaxy, which is even nicer nod right there.
Mark Haynes says Lower Decks is geeks with a budget.
Yeah, it is, man.
Yeah, we could all use a budget.
Yeah.
What did you guys think of the musical part of the episode? Starting off with Boimler's odes to his mother, which I guess that makes sense given his character, but the Tendi Mariner rock out.
It is.
Dayton, I don't know how much of a music critic you are, but this week you're a music critic. What did you think?
I thought it was fun. Did you guys catch the little bit where Boimler's in the turbo lift and he's humming the Next Generation theme before the captain gets on board?
Yeah.
I totally missed that. I
actually had to rewind it. I'm like, wait, did I hear what I thought I just heard? And I rewound it, and I'm like, okay, good. I'm not completely crazy. So that was a funny moment.
Yeah, my note on that is Lower Decks breaks the fourth wall. That was my note on that, because they literally did. They broke the fourth wall with that, with Boimler humming the TNG theme.
I love the music in general. In general, I love the music. I love the opening theme, and I love the little nods that they give. Like there's a little bit of the mock time fight music going on during the fight scenes, just a little bit. I think there was enough of it in this episode where they actually credited Alexander Courage for the original series theme. So. Or the Next Gen theme, so it's fun. I hope they release an album of the music like they have for the other shows.
Yeah, I also want to point out too that during the fight scene actually not with Ransom, it was the first fight scene when Chaos broke out. That was directly from First Contact. That was First Contact right there, is what that was. I don't know if anybody caught that. I did, but.
Are there any? We should make this a weekly segment. Highlights from Shawn's notes.
Yeah, as he rattles them around in front of us.
I can make a hat or a brooch or a tentacle.
Shawn's notes.
There you go.
Shawn's notes comes in nicely.
Translated from the original Chicken Scratch.
Now
there you go. There you go.
Now, seriously, you're gonna have to take notes every week now, Shawn.
Yeah,
You're committed now. So, anything else we should know from your notes?
Let me see. So well, in the beginning, that was a throwback to TNG with the musical performance they always did 10 forward in that. What caught my attention was that Cardassian peace treaty that they're signing. They didn't say with who, so I thought that was kind of interesting. Maybe that will come up later. I told you about my thing about nobody turning the alcohol off in the replicators. I thought that was funny. We covered that. Oh, Rutherford's, if you notice, Rutherford's eye, his digital eye, it blinks. Just something I caught.
I noticed that. I caught that this episode. I guess it's done that on the others, but I just actually saw it blinking.
Yeah,
it's freaky.
That's funny. So,
how many watches did you give it this week, Shawn?
I only gave it 2. I had the first
wow.
one with the kids, and then I watched it tonight before we went on and took notes. But these aliens. I mean, I don't know how many of you guys. I know Ross, you watch Rick and Morty, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Dayton, are you a Rick and Morty fan by any chance?
I haven't watched it, but everybody I know tells me I need to be watching this thing.
Yeah, and it's like I said, I pointed out that Lower Decks is very much like Rick and Morty minus the nihilism. It replaces nihilism for optimism is what it does. And of course, it's Star Trek. And it's like I've always said about Rick and Morty. Rick and Morty is the best science fiction show on television, disguising itself as a comedy. And that's really what we're seeing here with Lower Decks. Lower Decks is a great Star Trek series that's disguising itself as a comedy. But these aliens in the show are all out of Rick and Morty. It's hilarious. Yeah. The aliens are the funniest fucking part of the show. How just weird and crazy they are. I mean,
everything is crystal.
Yeah,
it's crystal or nothing.
They got all mad because my favorite line. He's got wood. Uh-oh, that doesn't sound peaceful.
Rather hang out with you here than those crazy wood loving.
Yeah, exactly. You know, they're like they've got swords and spears. How do these guys get on board? And that is like, you know, we have seen
the
that
spears were crystal.
Right, of course. Well, that makes all the difference, clearly. But it's like, you know, that's like one of the funny things about Trek is you see these cultures, these species, and you're like, how the hell do they ever become more capable? I mean, let's be honest. Let's look at the Klingons, for God's sake, and the Ferengi. How the hell did they ever become more capable? I mean, you know. And this is kind of the question they're asking on the show. They're pointing it out, and I always like it when they do this in the show. They point out the absurdity of this. And again, what did these guys want to do? They wanted to come on board, steal non-existent crystals, and just spray paint graffiti all over the place. That was their big thing.
Graffiti was great. Oh my God, it was all over. I mean, all over the ship too, even on the cells.
How do they do it?
The best part of that was the fact that the captain told them to repel borders, but don't stop doing what you're doing. Holy crap, did that hit me in a personal space.
Yep. We've got this latrine that needs to be cleaned out, but but so if in between you fighting off the aliens, make sure that toilet gets cleaned. Yeah, absolutely. Oh yes, and of course, Bark Hugging Root Smooches is the name of Dayton's new band. So I thought I'd bring that up now that we're here.
Bar hugging.
There you go.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you actually had a book, Dayton.
Oh yeah.
Of your band names.
It's getting published too.
This is a thing of legend, man.
I'm curious. Could you read us a couple of your favorites?
Well, they're all my favorites. So,
well, by the way, you've had plenty of people contribute to this as well.
No. These are all just the ones I came up with. I don't keep other people's band names. I come up with my own ones. You guys get your own goddamn book.
Nice try, Shawn.
I don't even need credit. I just want my band names in the book.
The only one I kept was the one that Shawn gave me. Shawn did give me one that I did write because I told him I would put it in here if I can find it. Lesbians and Sheer Fucking Hubris. That's the one that Shawn gave me.
Nice.
Let's see. I've got Floating Bioluminescence. Let's see. Edible Glitter Dicks. Apparently that's what was my
Whoa.
This is a family.
Oh yeah, let's dance.
Yeah, so it's really not useful at all. But one day I'll
useful for a laugh or two.
I'll auction it off and donate the money.
Do you actually play an instrument, Dayton? I'm just curious.
I play the radio.
Nice.
At least he's honest.
Shawn, what instrument do you play?
I don't know. I'm not saying it because it's too easy. I'm just not doing it.
But the recorder?
Okay.
No, I mean honestly, I
silent.
I would love to see that book published of Dayton's
band names.
Yep.
I got a while to go. I got about half of the book to fill up here. I'm at 220 something names.
Jesus Christ.
Well, it's been
posters.
We're gonna have a presidential election coming up, so I'm sure you'll get that.
Oh my God! Wait till the debate. You're gonna have 1 million of them.
Oh my God!
All right, I'll be writing them down.
That'll be a tired one. All right. At the end, we saw a look forward to next week's episode. Did anything of that strike your fancy that you're looking forward to finally seeing? Jason's everyone wants to see the
well,
sarcastic Vulcan salute.
Live long and suck
There's a
it.
band name right there. That's the band name. We'll call that one.
Apparently, the title of next week's episode is called "Moist Vessel."
Oh,
I called it.
Shut up!
It is.
Yep, it is.
I personally am really hoping that we will potentially see Cetacean Ops.
Oh, please.
I really
Yes,
want to see Cetacean Ops.
Yeah, you're not going to see Cetacean Ops this season
Well,
You don't think so? Why not?
Fuck.
Why the hell not?
because they've already talked about wanting to do it for season 2 on the first episode of Ready Room that Mike McMahon did with Will Wheaton.
Okay.
We should probably be watching Ready Room, huh?
Yeah, we probably should.
Yeah,
Regardless,
probably.
we've seen some sort of trailer, or not some sort of trailer. We've seen some footage of some sort of underwater footage in one of the trailers, and I'm personally looking forward to a fun little underwater adventure. And I'm wondering if this might be it. Maybe, I don't know.
Spoilers. Mariner's going to get stranded underwater with Branson.
No,
That would be Star Trek's, I think, second underwater episode. I guess
there's the one in Voyager. But,
30 days.
Oh, was there?
Yeah, 30 days.
Yeah, where Paris got demoted.
Yep. But he goes to a planet.
Right. Okay, so third, because the one I was thinking of is in the animated series.
I haven't seen
Yeah,
all
that's
the
right.
animated series yet.
Kurt got gills.
So it's 3. That's right. That is technically 3 if it's one of the ones that's counted.
Travis, you've never seen the animated series?
I've seen maybe 3 or 4 episodes. Honestly, I just never really sat myself down to watch it.
But what about Star Trek DSV there, Carlos?
Yeah, exactly. Dayton, are you a fan of the animated series?
A huge fan. I'm a fan from way back. In fact, I saw it original run. So
yeah, me too.
I watched it on Saturday mornings. So I didn't even know it was a color show.
That's really we had black and white too in my house for most of it.
The old style TVs with the turn knobs that you had to turn for UHF and VHF and turn the inner knobs and screw with the rabbit ears antennas to try to get the reception. Oh, those were the days.
Oh, the UHF those were hard because, unlike the lower channels, those, you had to click for every number, but on UHF, it was like tuning a radio. You had to get just the right place to get the channel you were going for.
I hope to God that you figured out the right antenna direction and everything like that. Yeah, it was quite fun. I'm saying fun and sarcastic tone.
Would run the show like on a Saturday. The original series reruns on Saturday on this UHF station that I watched down in Florida. And when I go out to my aunt's house, she lived about 50 miles away from where the tower was for the station. And you doing that, you're messing with the knob, you're putting your hand on the antenna, and you're standing on one foot, and you're tilting around. And if you're lucky, you might get sound and picture. Usually, you had to choose between one or the other. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, we had it set up to where the original series would play, and the Next Generation would come on, and then Deep Space Nine would come on after that. Voyager hasn't aired yet, but they had it kind of back to back to back, depending on what channel it was on.
Yeah, I remember I've always said this about the animated series. I have a really great appreciation for the animated series because I look at it from the perspective of it's of course a continuation of the original series. But they were able to do all sorts of shit that they could never do in live action because they were able to animate it, which just opened up the world, the universe of Star Trek. And I've always said, people think I'm crazy. They ask me what my favorite Star Trek series is, and the first words that come out of my mouth is the animated series, without question. I'm a huge Trek fan, and the animated series has always been that close to my heart. Without question, I love it. Like me and that's why me and Aaron Harvey get along so well. So,
Dayton, what is your favorite Star Trek series and why?
Were you asking?
Dayton.
You asking me or are you asking? Oh, okay, you cut out there. I'm a fan of the original. So I grew up watching the original reruns long before Next Gen came along and all that other stuff. That's the one I was watching every day after school and on Saturdays. And, sometimes on Saturdays, they partner it with stuff like Space 1999, Lost in Space, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, and then a whole bunch of 50s and 60s horror and sci-fi movies. Creature features, what they used to call it. hosted by a guy who was dressed as a pallbearer. His name was Dr. Paul Bear, was the character's name. And so he would host it like the Crypt Keeper. He'd intro the movies, and he'd come out during commercial breaks and do stupid skits. So yeah, he was a legend at Tampa. So that's how I got to watch old school science fiction movies from the 50s and stuff. So
yeah.
Love that. That's awesome.
Where would you rank Lower Decks amongst your the Star Trek series?
And it's too early to tell, but I'm enjoying it right now. It's having. I'm anxious to see some of the stuff that's coming because I've read the scripts, but I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen any animation. I haven't seen any rough cuts. I've held back from doing that. I want to see the completed episode, and I think the stuff that's coming up is going to be fun.
So let me ask you this: based on because you've read the scripts, have the final product lived up to the scripts so far?
It actually exceeds what I'm expecting to see. Like I read the scripts and like I didn't know what they were going to do with the voices. I had no idea who the cast was. So you're reading a line and you don't know how it's going to be delivered or how it's going to be played. And so far they've surprised me. And then there are times when I read a script and a joke will catch me completely off guard and I will laugh out loud. In fact, I was reading one the other night for a second season episode. And there were 2 times when the script completely caught me flat-footed, and I just laughed loud enough that my kid came down the stairs to wonder what the hell I was doing. So if they play that half as well on screen as they do on the page, it's going to go gangbusters. It's just that funny.
Oh, great. Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are at just about an hour, so I think that's what we are at
an hour. You're at 40 minutes. You're late. I got to watch the episode while we were waiting on you.
Way late.
Yeah, we were sitting here twiddling our thumbs, and Carlos. No, where's Carlos? No one knows where Carlos is.
You can blame my ancient computer for that one.
No excuse, Carlos. No excuses. No.
Don't cry for me, Carlos Pedraza.
Exactly. I have my own soundtrack.
Yes, you do, and it is this.
Okay. Justin, I think every time you run that music, that's when you should also run the little send complaints to complaints at supergeeks.com.
Do we actually have that URL yet? Do we have it registered?
No.
Yeah. We don't?
John was supposed to register that.
I am?
Yeah, you have control of the domain.
I got to go get an email from
you better do it fast because there are listeners who may rush to get that domain name if we don't.
There may be hosts that run and grab it.
We have the domain name. I just never set up an email for it. So, yeah.
Oh, okay.
We're cool on that. We're cool.
Have Hayden do it. He's got time.
Okay. Last question for you, Dayton, on Star Trek in general, but also on Lower Decks. Any you get the last word on the episode. I don't know if you're going to stick around for other Star Trek topics, but these may be your last words.
Well, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I think it's probably this is the episode that shows how the format can work the best. I think it's the best balance so far between the comedy and the Star Trek storyline. So I think it's going to trend that direction with the remaining episodes of the season. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to being pleasantly surprised. Please feel free to stick around. We're going to be talking about a couple more Star Trek related topics, including unpopular Star Trek opinions worth debating. So if you stick around that long, I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on that. We'll move to our next topic, and that was news this week that we have, I don't know, I think it's the 3rd crowdfunding campaign on behalf of Nichelle Nichols that came out this week. And there's a lot of them, and they don't all, some of them seem a little sketchy. Do you guys agree?
I mean, they all seem sketchy, except for this one seems to actually be by her son, which I think is probably the most legit. It seems to me like he just hasn't, the problem is he's gotten late in the game on this. I don't know enough about this, but from what I understand is that he's actually trying to take care of her, and other people have not had her best interest at heart. So I don't know. I mean, it's all weird. It's very weird.
My concern is are the various films that are, I think, exploiting her, honestly, for her, popularity and crowdfunding. She's obviously a beloved, played a beloved character, is a beloved actor herself. She's a joy to work with. I got to work with her when I was script supervisor on Star Trek of Gods and Men. And honestly, back then, and this is like 2005, I think 2006 when we made that. She was having trouble remembering lines then, which was why I got the chance to work with her so much. She was very sweet and very professional still, and it's just, I look at what they're doing, and I feel like they're just doing it to make money off her name.
Well, I know someone that knows Tim Russ. We all know they've been using his image to death on their promotions, and apparently he's been out since the first one. He hasn't had anything more to do with it. So he's probably unaware that they have been using his image to continue to raise money. So these, it's all being done by Sky Conway.
Well, when I saw her last year at STLV, it's part of life, aging, and getting to that point where, there's just, I felt uncomfortable seeing her in public, not because she was, I just felt uncomfortable for her. We always want to remember people at their best, at their prime. And I feel like, I don't ever want anyone to be wheeled out weekend at Bernie style for money, especially in their twilight years, and that's kind of how I felt last year at STLV. And, and then all these other things, I want her to have dignity in her final days. I really do. I think that's really important. And that's my biggest concern is that, one, she's taken care of, and two, that it's done with dignity.
And Sci-Fi for Me over on YouTube says it was her sister that put this fundraiser together.
Yeah, the GoFundMe explains some of the legal travails as her former business manager took advantage of her giving him her power of attorney, and he started deeding her properties to him, and he eventually was fired. But that's so they're going to court against that guy.
Right.
So
and he's actually suing her, and over all this.
Oh, because he was dismissed?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, it's a legit concern, but coming on top of a couple of more recent questionable crowdfunding campaigns using her name and image, and some of which ostensibly on her behalf, but I'm not quite sure if it's on her behalf. I'm thinking of her, her final appearance tour that was supposed to happen, and I don't know if it did happen.
It happened a couple times, actually. There's supposed to be the final event, a final appearance tour, and then the second part of Renegade was supposed to be her final acting appearance, if I remember correctly, was it not?
Well, now it's going to be the other Renegades. Is it a short, the Aminara, the one they're raising money for right now?
I'm very uncomfortable with what Renegades is doing with her. I'm very uncomfortable with this. I can't be the only one.
No, I mean, I am too.
And they're not just marketing her, but they're making action figures out of her over this as well. I mean, they're basically merchandising her, and remember, this is not a Star Trek fan film, because they ripped off all the Star Trek branding off of this. They filed off the sales numbers. So this is all. Yeah, this is all about putting money in their pocket. So I find that, like I said, this very, very unsettling.
Well, this was all sketchy back even whenever it was a Star Trek fan film, because with what they were raising money for, they did the Kickstarters for the whole production, and then a few months later they had to do another Kickstarter to get VFX computers for their CG guys. Yeah, I'm like, well,
the thing about the original. Look, here's the thing. I'm not gonna. Everybody gets a do-over on crowdfunding and everything before the Axonar debacle in the fan film rules, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not I'm just saying I'm not going to hold anything against Renegades for doing what everybody else was doing and getting away with.
Sure.
And the fact of the matter is, Renegades actually produced a product. You say what you will about it, they actually produced what they said they would produce.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
A little money probably got skimmed off the top, but hey.
But still produced. And then they wisely decided after the fan film guidelines came out that fuck it, we're not even gonna deal with this. We're gonna debrand it as Star Trek completely and just have it be its own thing, which is fine. But obviously, clearly, the reality of it is that they wouldn't be where they were without having originally branded as Star Trek to begin with. But I digress. Point being here is that that's fine. The Renegades is fine. Where the issue is exploiting an old lady. That's the problem I have.
Apparently, she is also. Mark just said she's apparently in Space Command as well. Is this the upcoming version of Space Command, Mark?
Space Command. I mean, how? But when was it?
That's been working.
I mean, that could have been
forever.
Honestly,
right?
that could be footage of her from a decade ago. At this point, with Space Command, that's how long that's just been.
Yeah.
So there's certain stuff where I've seen where they, there was a Kickstarter for a documentary with her,
Right,
and filming down on the sets in Kingsland and stuff. And okay, I got that. If you want to do that, and that seems fine. A lot of different discussions were going on and things where she was making personal appearances. And as you get older, that's tough, and things are harder and harder on your body and your mind. And depending on who is making these decisions for her and what was best for her or best for certain things where I go, maybe I kept thinking, is this last Renegades thing where did she request something to do of like, hey, I want one last go out or not? I don't know. We're seeing there, but it's hard to see somebody that we keep revisiting from other shows and movies where you see her at a certain age, and that's just what's stuck in here. And then, like, Jason said, seeing her at STLV, things are different, and things are different now. And what is best for her?
I had honestly thought with her appearance in Of Gods and Men was supposed to be her last,
Right.
if I remember correctly.
Oh, I don't remember it being built that way.
Yeah, I don't remember that being built that way. And I also remember like the second part of Renegades was supposed to be originally like the last time Walter played Chekhov,
Right. Mm-hmm.
until it got scrubbed.
What I'd like to see? I would love to see that somebody, the powers that be at CBS, at Kurtzman Inc. said, you know what? Let's just give Michelle a cameo in one episode of Discovery or Picard somehow. Give her a nice big fat check so she can stop doing this shit.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
I mean, seriously, everybody would be happy. There's no one that would complain, and Michelle could get a day on the set, give everybody a big hug, and then just enjoy her retirement. What's left of it,
Give her one last big old send off. I mean, they can write it in that she was the great grandchild of the original or something like that. I mean, it's that's the beauty of Trek. You can do anything you want.
Well, we certainly wish her the best, and I hope that everything falls into place for her. But the more things her pictures being attached to raise money, the worse it looks, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, any final thoughts before we move to our next topic?
Dayton, do you have particular insight into this?
I have no real knowledge about what's going on, just from what you guys are saying. I've been doing some looking up while you guys were talking, and so that's as informed as I am. I mean, I know there have been rumors that she's had some issues with her health, and yeah, I'm concerned now, having heard all this. I wish the best.
Yeah, she was really fragile at STLV last year. I was with Jason, I think, when we saw her, and I mean, she still looks. She's almost regal, I think, in the way she holds herself, even now with her health concerns. But she also looks kind of frail. It's amazing. It's a testament to her that she could pull off both at the same time.
It's like watching Queen Elizabeth, it's like watching Queen Elizabeth. She's like the queen. It's just like doesn't matter how old or frail she seems to be. She carries herself with such a
radiance,
a brilliance that it's like wow. Even though even though that time is caught up.
She came to a show here in Kansas City a couple of years ago, and we were involved in a couple of conversations about perhaps moderating a discussion panel or a Q&A thing with her on stage, And we asked them, and what we got back from her people was that she preferred not to do that. She would rather have spent that time interacting with fans on the floor, so posing for pictures and signing autographs and doing all that, and interacting with the kids and all that kind of thing. That's where she really lit up. So when we checked in with her throughout the weekend, she was doing what she always does, which was just having fun with her fans.
That's great. That's beautiful.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, next news item. This one I think can fall in the "I told you so" department, and that was the news this week that the Second Circuit Court of Appeals in New York rejected the copyright infringement lawsuit against CBS and Netflix over Star Trek Discovery. It was brought by Anas Abdeen, a video game developer in the Mideast, who claimed that his lawyers actually claimed, I love this, that Star Trek Discovery, or that the video game was like a storyboard for Star Trek Discovery, scene by scene, which is of course utterly untrue, and even pointed out by the Circuit Court decision that it wasn't even a cohesive. Travis, don't beat yourself up about it.
Carlos, easy, Travis, easy.
Easily
denied.
Exactly. Anyway, go ahead, Travis.
I have been talking about this all week with so many people. I mean, I get that the people who don't care for Discovery and will who might fall in line with channels like Nerdrotic and whatnot will probably think like, oh, Discovery and this just have way too much similarities, and I can't deal with it anymore. I just can't. Like, the video that I talked about a few months ago by YMS, which compared The Lion King and Kimba.
Yeah.
He brought up a really good point of, like, if you are only familiar with one piece and somebody gives you an image of another thing that looks very similar to the one thing you're familiar with, your brain will automatically connect the two, that they are in some form the same story, the same message, the same theme, whatever it is. And I mean, this is a video game that has a very basic concept at best. There is no written story that I'm aware of. There are no established characters. It's just like, I don't understand how people believe that a show with 3 completed seasons is plagiarizing an unfinished video game that almost nobody knows about. And I mean, when people like bring up, oh, well, there's this footage that was released from the game, and like a few months later, this trailer was released. I'm just thinking, like, are you suggesting that Discovery was rewritten, recast, refilmed in these 3 short months, and a full finished trailer was released at this right after they saw this video game? I'm so done. I am so done with these people.
I'm just walking done. Because I mean, the level of ignorance when it comes to understanding copyright law, and how simple random things being similar does not equal a copyright infringement. You know.
CBS paid to judge.
Yeah, that's the other one too. That's an immediate.
I hate that.
That's an immediate. I know. Seriously, over the past week, I've discovered that it's so much easier for me to just block these people, these repeat offenders in these groups who post this stupid shit. It's minimal.
Hey, you know what's sad about these people? Most of them are all the same little group of people with multiple accounts.
Yeah,
I wish I could just block them, but I mean, since most of this takes place in the Trek group, I don't exactly have the luxury unless I just straight up ban them.
Yeah, airlock their asses. Yeah.
Well, my concern, my concern over this actually was how Anas Abdeen, I think, was exploited by Nerdrotic and others to raise money, supposedly justice for Anas. They raised tens of thousands of dollars in just a weekend on GoFundMe. We never really saw where that money went, how it was used. We know it was used up, according to Abdeen himself on his blog, but apparently it went really fast. He tried a second GoFundMe, and where did everybody go? No Nerdrotic, no Macarandum, no Midnight Edge. All those people were gone. They completely abandoned him. And I think he raised maybe $700 out of 10,000 he wanted or something.
But by that point, the calamity penises of the world got their clicks. They got their monetized videos. Like, I mean, at some point, like, he loses steam. When he lost his first case, you can't come back from that if you're talking about fundraisers, right? I mean,
well, no, the fundraiser was right after he lost his first case.
I understand, but like, it was pretty much he was pretty much bitch slapped down, and like this idea that like he would be able to continue or fight, it's ridiculous, like
absurd. Yeah.
And I completely agree with Carlos here. That's actually probably one of my biggest takeaways this week was just how infuriated I was that these people manipulated Anas. I mean, like, I have expressed before that I hope Anas finishes his video game. And it's disappointing to realize that, the people who said, you've got a case here, have hurt not only his reputation, but probably his chances of ever finishing this game of his. And, I mean...
Or he's already said on Twitter he's never finishing this game.
But
go ahead, Jason.
Did they exploit him? I mean, seriously, like he has far more popularity now than he ever would have if it wasn't for the Nerdrotics in the world promoting him, right? I mean, he gave him exposure, and he got sympathy from those campaigns, and I mean, the guy, I don't have, I think maybe up through the first, I think he was misguided. I think when he decided to launch an appeal it was pretty much a solid ruling. Like anyone who just looks at that and continues on, I don't have empathy for anymore.
Well, but I think exploited is a fair term, given that tens of thousands of dollars of people's money went to this. Like, people money out of their pockets for essentially what was a lost cause from the very beginning. And that's the exploitation I'm most worried about. Like, he himself, yes, he's gained a lot of fame, if you want to call it that. But I'm concerned about the fact that it's just, it's getting money out of people's pockets and getting clicks and monetizing videos for the people on YouTube who do that sort of thing and have proven to themselves that, being anti-Star Trek, new Star Trek is, a solid revenue stream for them.
And I should point out too, remember when he lost the case initially, he came right on and said that, okay, this is over, I'm done. And then they talked him into going further. And that was for their benefit, not his, period.
Mm-hmm.
And I should point out, it's like I said on this, my interest in this is so minimal, because I said this on Axe Monitor that, this case is the Orville of the Axe Monitor network. It's that shitty saga that I have to watch in between episodes. of Axonar, Alec Peters fucks up again. I mean, and I'm just finally glad that it's finally canceled. Is what it comes down to. It's over. You know, it's.
Yeah, it was definitely a not with a bang but a whimper kind of ending. You know, that the 3-judge panel issued their ruling, and it did make some headlines out on the web and in some newspapers and such, but the internet as a whole did not react to it. And I remember months before, during the when he first appealed it, you know, people were crawling out of the woodwork talking about how evil, you know, corporations are putting down artists, and if you supported artists' rights, you needed to support Anas Abdin and so forth. And none of that rage was present this week that I saw.
Nobody was covering. I think maybe there might have been one video on it, and that was from some random guy nobody ever heard of, and that was it.
Yeah, I mean, there was nothing on Nerdrotic's channel. There was nothing from Abdin himself on his blog. But in fact, his last blog entry was in April, and even then, you could tell he saw the writing on the wall, because he basically says, "I'm not going to finish the game," and he went on to share stuff he had developed about the game, and you know, there were a few comments on there about, "No, keep going, Anas, whatever," and I think he knew even then.
Well,
you know, around.
I asked him if he was going to complete the game. I was like, "Are you ever going to complete the game with all this money you're getting? I mean, well, are you going to actually finish the game?" And he said no, and then promptly blocked me.
Well, but he was not. None of that money was going to the game, so it's, you know, it's not really a fair question. But you know, and you can't, you know, fame doesn't put money in your pocket, and it certainly didn't in his case. And so I feel bad for him, you know, that he was misguided from the get-go and then exploited by people who saw him as a way of benefiting themselves at the expense of not just him, but also a lot of Star Trek fans.
A lot of angry, bitter Star Trek fans at that.
Yeah, indeed. Did you track the case at all, Dayton?
Just what you guys reported. I mean, when I saw it from, you know, it was your stuff that you wrote on Axon Monitor and a couple other places that I would go out and look. And of course, there were comments on social media about it. But I read the ruling. I'm like, yeah, this is what they said a year ago, right? So they just basically put the foot down. Yeah. So
yeah, they basically said everything she said, we say. In fact, I think the ruling was downloaded more for all the Star Trek Easter eggs in it than it was the actual.
Yeah, I think there were more Easter eggs in that ruling than the previous episode of Lower Decks.
I was going to say, did Mike McMahon write the ruling? So.
Well, you can tell that this judge was clearly a fan.
Well, you know, I think that every judge that has had a Star Trek case before them has done something like this. Judge Klausner, the Axonar case, did the same thing. And some of the other, you know, older copyright cases, the same thing. It's just too good an opportunity to let get by.
I mean, do you think they do it themselves, or have their, you know, is there that one Star Trek nerd on their staff of clerks that does all the deep dives and goes to Memory Alpha and gets all the references and puts it all in there for them? You know, I'm curious to know the behind the scenes story of something like that.
It would be good to know, but go ahead, Shawn.
I have to believe that just based on what I know of Star Trek fans and how they tend to be, for the most part, the brightest among us, I would have to believe that these people, especially in such high levels, are fans themselves, even if they're not telling anyone about it. Because I mean, with Axonar, there were some very fucking specific references. I mean, not just shit you look up on Memory Alpha. I mean,
I just got this image I got this image in my head of a judge, and he's in his chambers or her chambers, and he's he's getting ready to write his ruling, and he goes up to his bookcase and he's pulling down the law books, and he's maybe pulling down a book of quotations, and he's pulling down a history book, and then there's the next gen tech manual that he's going to lay out.
Well, you know, he's got your Kirk Fu book there too.
Yep.
Oh yeah, because judges need to know how to fight.
Echo Bible manual anywhere? If not, someone needs to write one.
Yeah, something. You know, I can just see that where the guy's like, "Oh yeah, we're going to talk about plasma manifolds."
My favorites are EPS conduits.
That's Star Trek on my own.
Self-sealing stem boats.
Star Trek.
Oh, by the way, here Hayden wants to say hi to you really quick because I told him who you were, and he's like, "Seriously, 27 novels? Oh my god!" So here he is, real quick. Get your head in front of there. Say hi.
Hi.
Hi, Hayden. How you doing?
Great.
I saw your movie.
Oh.
Mad Planet.
Yeah.
Saw your movie. Looking for my headshot. Where are my patches for that movie?
30 days out.
Sean, could you get right on that, please? Yeah, 30 days out.
Fulfillment.
All right. There
Still
we
waiting
go.
on my
We're good.
perks. Still waiting on my perks, O'Halloran.
To make a reference of his
You need perks for your fan film? For their fan film? I'll see what I can do.
There might be a sale coming. I get some extras.
Oh, Hayden just said he wants you to write the next fan film for us. Sorry, you've been commissioned.
No, like
he just wants notes. He just wants notes. He wants.
Oh
to
no,
write
he
what gets to do.
said no. That's what he just said. He said he wants you to write the novels. Boy, does that sound familiar?
Oh, the novelization.
But you'll have to do it under a pseudonym.
Right,
Seems
exactly.
to me I've heard this song before.
Ghostwriter.
Yeah.
He wants to be a ghostwriter.
Yeah, so Waiting Dord. Okay, that's
Yeah.
what you're gonna. That's
That'll
who you're
be
gonna
me.
have to write under.
Yeah.
I like
Okay.
Daytona Wardstrom.
Perfect.
Nice.
Or is that your drag name?
Yeah.
Your drag band name?
Do that when I go to Vegas. Hey, do they still have that bowling alley that's for drag queens out there on Fremont Street? At the end of Fremont Street, they still have that bowling alley?
In Seattle?
No,
Oh, there used to be a
no,
bowl.
Vegas.
There used to be a bowling alley at the east end of Fremont Street that was for drag
We're
queens.
talking about drag queens and bowling alleys, so we just need to have.
It is.
Thank you, Justin. Okay, let's move on to our next topic.
It's a thing.
I'm glad you hung around for this one, Dayton, because I really want you to weigh in on these.
No, here we go.
I came across this article this week in Looper called "Unpopular Opinions About Star Trek That Raise Good Points." So I thought we'd go through these and see where everyone stands on these things. So let's. There's a few, so it'll take a little bit of time. So keep your comments short. Just say whether you agree, disagree, and why or why not. Okay, so number one, The City on the Edge of Forever is not the best episode of Star Trek. True or false? Dayton, you want to start us off?
What are they countering with? What is the best episode?
Well, what
Better
they're
have one
saying
ready
is,
to go.
what they're saying is that even though it's a great episode of television, as far as an episode of Star Trek, it does not do any commentary on social issues, which is what Star Trek is known for, and what the other very best episodes of Star Trek are able to do.
Like I said, if you didn't have one in the chamber, fire off as an alternative. It's a crap.
They do
opinion.
have two in the chamber. They do have two
Okay,
in
what
the
do they got?
chamber. One,
What are they?
Balance of Terror, and Devil in the Dark. I would agree with Balance of Terror. I don't think I'd agree with, even though I'm a big fan of Hordas.
Are we talking about the original series or all across
Original
the
series.
board?
Original series.
Best original series episode? I don't know that it's not my favorite of all time, but I would argue that it's probably the best written Star Trek episode of the original series, bar none. I mean, in terms of quality of writing, I don't think anybody's going to upset that, right? I mean, they're all going to agree Harlan Ellison brought his A game. As far as it being the best episode of Star Trek, if it's not, it's definitely in the top 5, if not the top 3. I'll give him that much. So,
Agreed. Any other opinions on this one?
I take exception with the idea that there's not social commentary. There is social commentary, and that is that sometimes there is a just war, and we saw that in World War II.
Yes.
Right. And so, like the idea that this doesn't do social commentary, it's lost on me.
She was
Trouble
right,
with
but at the
Tribble.
wrong
Yeah.
time.
Trouble with
Yeah,
Tribbles
I think
didn't do a lot of social commentary, but everybody loves that one.
True.
It's a favorite for a reason. it's a good episode, but not necessarily the best example of social commentary in Star Trek either.
Indeed. Any other opinions on this one before we move on to number 2? Then
yeah, I agree and disagree for the exact same reason everybody else did. So I don't really have any much input. Balance of Terror is my favorite episode of all time of the original series. However, I agree with Dayton that Sitting on the Edge of Forever is so incredibly well written, just across, up and down. It's a beautiful science fiction story, and I agree with Jason that there is social commentary about the just war, and there's also commentary about even from a sci-fi perspective that we've that's been touched about many times about not changing the past, and how important that is, that the past has to play out, even though it's not, time travel is a real thing.
Okay, very good. Now let's go to number 2. Number 2 is the Prime Directive is an unethical policy. Dayton, your guess, so you get to go first.
An unethical. I think it's a noble intention that is usually portrayed poorly. Okay. The idea of not interfering in a lesser developed society is a noble idea for the reasons that they usually state, which is we're going to find a way to screw this up. But they also use it to dodge way too many times. And then, of course, they just ignore it. Like, we have a Prime Directive, but we're going to beam down to the planet with the half-naked people and hang out with them.
Just say, we're from the next valley over where we wear clothes.
So it's, it's usually very inconsistency applied. It's one of those things that it's a great idea that is usually very clumsily executed. So,
okay, good point. Anyone else?
I will say I would counter this with the Enterprise episode Cogenitor, which I found to be very impactful when it comes to the issues that the Prime Directive is meant to highlight, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I agree. I actually like the ethical dilemma in that episode too. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm of the perspective of it being the Prime Directive is a good principle, but the stated adherence to it above all else, I think, is problematic and always has been problematic. This is illustrated in and I hate this episode because I hate everything from first season of TNG. Pen pals. Data's asking all the right questions about this. It's fucking stupid. And it also, I said to myself, say we live in the Star Trek universe, okay? And we have this notion that we can't save these people because it would alter the course of their evolution. The fact of the matter is, how do we know somebody didn't do that to us along the way? Save us from some kind of cataclysmic event.
We know this. We know this happened. In Star Trek, we know this happened. I mean,
Gary Seven.
Gary Seven was on Earth screwing with us all through the 20th century. So, yes.
Exactly, right there.
So, thank you, Unknown Aliens.
Not to mention all the time travel events.
So, right. I mean, this, and of course, that has been revisited before. And I like the episode, and I think it's a 7th season episode. I think it's called Homeward. Is that the episode with Worf's stepbrother? Where he says, "Fuck it, I'm taking these people and we're gonna save them. That's it. That's what we're doing." And Worf and Picard is like, "Well, you got me in a bad stinking spot here. I'm just gonna have to." And it really it's like the writers are aware that this is a flawed policy. This is a flawed position that I think deserves a lot more. It should be a lot more nuanced than it's been portrayed.
Well, I think it provides a drama, right? So you couldn't fight with each other, but you could fight with the rules, right? In this case, the rule was you couldn't interfere, but it just seemed morally right to interfere with. I think like the episode, season 2 episode with Sharzhenka, Data, and again, you watch the episode, you feel really bad for this voice crying for help from the darkness. And yet, Picard is duty bound and honor bound to the Prime Directive until really he has no alternative but to cave. I think that's the problem with the Prime Directive, is that it's written in such a way, or it's presented in such a way that it is flawed right from the outset.
Or there's an omega particle on the planet, and then all bets are off.
Yeah, I would love to see. And like I think in like shit posting they call it like fascist propaganda or whatever. I would love to see an episode, and maybe we could do this on Lower Decks, but just where breaking the Prime Directive for the right reason just causes the biggest clusterfuck ever, and that would be.
We kind of saw that in Star Trek Into Darkness.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say the same thing. In the Darkness,
Just for a little bit in the beginning, it would be really good to see that as like a whole episode of almost like where like Sigma Iosha in a lot of ways, but played out more.
You made a point about. You just made a point about. Oh, Ross did it. Ross stuck it in there. The Omega Directive, which is, I think, one of the best Voyager episodes. That's the thing about Voyager. Voyager has a tendency to be really, really good or really, really shitty. There's really not a whole lot in between. And the Omega Directive episode is really good because it addresses this very issue of who are you to play life and death, to play God with these people. And, that is ultimately the question with the Prime Directive. Again, I think it's great in principle, but I think it should be dealt with a little bit more nuanced than it has been. In some episodes, and some writers have addressed it in a more nuanced fashion, which I appreciate. But, it's funny because, if you polled fans on this, like in the big Star Trek group, they're going to say, oh, no, stick to the Prime Directive, no matter what. But, the reality is a whole lot different. Even on the show, it's a whole lot different.
Well, it doesn't help that there are contradictions to the Prime Directive. In TOS alone, there were at least 2 episodes where Kirk and company were openly interacting with people as Starfleet with non-warp cultures, like with where Leonard James Akar came from, the people with the
Capellans, the Capellans.
The Capellans, thank you. Great example.
Friday's
arguably,
yes.
Arguably, that's because the Klingons already interfered.
Well, they didn't know
that they were.
The reason
the
they
Klingons
were
trying to get mining rights or something.
McCoy was embedded on the planet for several years in his early career, and then they came back to mining rights.
Exactly.
That's when the Klingons were there. They wanted it too, and then earlier on with the episode with Mugato.
That would be a Private Little War.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Another example.
It's retarded. All these names of episodes like this off the top of my head.
TOS contradicted the Prime Directive constantly.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't get. These haters want to shit on the new Trek, but look what the older shows did almost repeatedly. Look at DS9. Freaking Cisco committed a felony by poisoning a planet. I mean, and they want to shit on TNG and everything, or Discovery and Picard. Because,
hashtag Cisco war criminal. So there's. It's like I look at Discovery and I look at the season 2 episode 2 episode. I've been rewatching Discovery again, and it's what I love about that episode is that how dedicated to the Prime Directive.
Well, that's more of a
what now?
What? You Skyped?
Let Shawn finish. Let Shawn finish.
Okay. He how dedicated he is to it, and yet Burnham has a point too about the Prime Directive in that episode, and that hey, these people are only stuck like this because somebody ripped them out of their ground and put them on this planet. They shouldn't be stuck here in their 21st century, position in technology. And then it gets to the end, and Pike realizes, based on discussing with Burnham, that it is in his better interest to violate. It's in everybody's better interest to violate the Prime Directive. Again, it's a nuanced approach, and that's what I appreciate about that episode is that they do take a more nuanced approach to it, to the Prime Directive, because it really should be dealt much more nuanced than it's presented.
Okay, Jason, were you going to say something?
No, I'm good.
No. Okay. All right. Let's move on to our the next one, and this one, next unpopular opinion, is Star Trek failed its inclusive legacy for years. And they make the claim that after a great start in the 60s with a diverse cast and so forth, that as they moved into the 80s and 90s, it became far less so, particularly with regard to the portrayal of LGBT characters. And the closest we got, of course, was like Garrick and his crush on Bashir. But the closest they came was through these sort of heavily allegoric stories that they would occasionally put out there. But we had to wait until the 21st century to actually have a gay character appear as a gay character on screen. So did Star Trek fail its inclusive legacy for years? Dayton, you get to go first again.
I think it fell short. Yeah, and not only that, but I'll go one better. Ira Stephen Bear, who was the showrunner on DS9, said the exact same thing, that they fell short of that mark. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend the documentary they did about DS9 called "What We Left Behind," and he brings this up and he talks about it. In fact, they go through a list of various issues that they tried to, and topics that they tried to address over the course of the show, and they mark them off when they think they've made it, and that one is left unchecked. And he will tell you flat out that they fell short of that goal. Interestingly enough, and not to toot our horns, but the folks who were writing the comics and the novels during those same period, we had gay characters in our various novels and short stories going back to the early 2000s when I was just getting on board with it. So it was something we had talked long about with the different writers and editors that were on those different series. So when the shows weren't doing that, of course, at the time there were no shows in active production when I was starting out writing. So this is a relatively new phenomenon for me, watching it unfold, and it's great. I think it's a great sign of progress.
Yeah, I mean, even as late as Enterprise, almost all of the non-romantic male guest stars or non-romantic roles were played by males.
Right.
Even with like, this is an opinion I definitely agree with. Not just with the in regards to inclusion of the LGBTQ community, but I mean, if we're talking Enterprise, it is absolutely criminal just how token characters like Travis Mayweather are. Like, I actually remember someone making a comment based that you could replace Travis Mayweather with a potted plant and almost nothing would change on that show. And I just find it very, like...
I do take issue with that, only for the thing about it. This is... as I recall, I don't think it was tokenism. I think the problem is that with that show, after the first and second season, they just stopped writing for Sato and Mayweather, is what they did. They just disappeared.
Right. Well, I think, but doesn't that basically go to Travis's point?
I don't know. I don't know so much if it was intentional. They weren't just putting a black character on the bridge for the sake of having him there, because he was.
Of course they were.
Involved.
Of course they were. They thought it was important to have a diverse cast. No problem. I don't have a problem with them, having a diverse cast. It becomes a bad thing when you don't actually make use of that cast.
But they did for the 2 seasons. They did is my point on this, and then they just disappeared because they went a different direction. So is it? I mean, when they did, at what point does it become tokenism? Is my point here? That's my only question here on that. Was it really tokenism? I mean, they just went in a different direction with the writing. Right. Tasha Yar got zero shit in the episodes too, and she just quit. Denise Crosby. So I mean, that wasn't tokenism.
Well, I think if you're gonna employ a diverse cast, and you don't utilize those players to their fullest, I think did it start out as being tokenism? Did they hire Travis? Were they checking diversity boxes? I don't think that was necessarily the case, but I think to Travis's point, once those characters kind of fell off and they were just kind of background characters, then I think they were relegated to tokenism.
Okay, so you think it just tokenism just eventually is what happened,
right?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, it's fine. As far as the issues for representation for LGBTQ, Dayton pointed out that this is something they wanted to do, but they were held back on. If I recall correctly, is that not true, Dayton? That this was a powers that be decision that they were not allowed. This is how I understand it. Is that
Berman specifically vetoed several attempts.
Right, that's what I thought. And the way they would do it was almost it was kind of worse how they did it, because it was kind of offensive how they did it with the outcast. The way they attempted to broach these subjects with the way they did it on Deep Space Nine with the Rejoined episode, where they're two females, but they're not really, because it's only their symbionts, that type of thing. And then, of course, where it was just overt was the Mirror Universe episodes where, it doesn't count because it's the Mirror Universe type thing. I almost found that more, far more offensive than just not having done anything at all, the way they did that. So, I agree with that premise, entirely, that they failed miserably in that department.
Well, you also have to realize that, that it was a different time. So 1987, Star Trek was, that's when TNG came out. We didn't get the first, gay lead character until we get to, it's Ellen, right? It's really kind of the first, and that was
as a lead character. But by the 90s, there were other TV shows outpaced Star Trek in their diversity. Their depth of diversity. I think, again, Star Trek started out strong, but petered out while, the rest of television caught up and then passed them. So by the time you get to Enterprise and they do their HIV episode, it's like, why are you making it so allegorical? It's like, this is the closest you come. This is 2003? And, so much of television has gone so much further than you're even willing to go allegorically.
And there's a video on YouTube that covers the Rick Berman era of Star Trek. It's like Renegade Cut or something like that. They cite multiple examples of even before the 80s of shows that actually did bring in homosexual themes in their episodes, or recurring characters who were homosexuals or drag queens or characters in this area. And even on the TNG episode, The Outcast, Jonathan Frakes initially wanted to kiss a man in this episode, and I guess Rick Berman just wouldn't have it, and it's just a shame. It's just a shame.
Indeed. All right, let's move on to the next unpopular opinion, and I love this one, actually. It is, Data always had emotions. True or false? Dayton?
I would say no, because it comes out in the various scripts that he does not, except when he has the chip in there. Now, my thinking is that once he put the chip in and he experienced emotions, he had them from that point forward. It's just that he didn't know what to do with them, so he turned off those subroutines until later on in the movies when he accepted it. But in the beginning, he did not. I don't necessarily buy that one.
Oh, I have something to say about this.
Go.
Well, I get first season. It kind of was making them kind of seem like he had emotion. He even smiled once or twice. So I don't know if they had that figured out yet, if he was totally emotionless or what. But I don't think they figured that out till later on.
Okay, here's my theory on this, and that is that it was always stated specifically, because I've looked this up and repeated, because this has been a big thing for me for years, that Data was always said Data did not have basic emotions. I contest that Data may not have had basic emotions, but because that's what soon
right.
did intend. but he had he had incredibly complex emotions. Loyalty, which is something that he had in spades, is an incredibly complex emotion. Okay, his desire for justice, and it just goes down the line. All these complex emotions that we see Data exhibiting. Now, he may not have been able to laugh, understand humor. He may not have been able to love. He may not have been able to experience joy, but he did have complex emotion, and we saw it week to week. And it was a situation where he was greater than the sum of his programming. That's how I always felt, because, like I said, they were very specific that Data did not have basic emotions.
Well, I think that like the way he described missing someone after Tasha died, right? It was just he was just used to seeing her, and then when she was gone, the anticipation of seeing her caused something in him. Was it emotion the way you and I feel it? No, but I think the way he processed things, the way things were processed, they weren't emotions like you or I think they are, but there were
emotions, just not human ones. You know, I mean, I want to read a line from the Looper article because I think they put it really well. They say, Data can monitor and analyze his responses to stimuli in a mechanical, mathematical way, but that doesn't make them any less real than our own feelings.
Why?
I guess
He's not deficient. He's different.
Yeah.
I guess I'll go ahead and throw an Obi-Wan Kenobi quote at you.
Oh gosh.
It's true from a certain point of view. The episode that I immediately will think of, where I personally first really noticed that Data's emotions were coming through, even if he didn't realize it, was The Offspring. Particularly when he is working as fast as he can to save Lal. Now, he definitely tells her, like, I'm sorry I can't love you in return when she says I love you. But I mean, the fact that he is, like, the way the Admiral just describes him, like, just in a blur trying to save his daughter's life. I mean, he's not just doing it to do it. He wants her to live, and he wants her to survive, and he wants her to learn. And I mean, it's just one of those moments where it's just like desperation for him, if that makes any sense. I'm stuttering again.
You're not, because desperation is a very complex emotion. You're confirming my theory. Keep going.
No, I think what happened was didn't Soong say he deliberately left that out of Data because of the problems he encountered working with lore? He left out these parts. So, but their base programming, their ability, the ability of Data and lore to analyze and adapt to new information and new stimuli is what he's experiencing. His programs are being modified. He's getting a patch. He's getting an upgrade. He's getting a new subroutine installed. That's really what it's doing. Now, whether that's an emotion or it comes out as an emotion that we perceive as a different, that's probably what we're talking about. But as far as for Data, it's a modification of his programming that's already there. That capability was installed because Soong put it there. He just left out the critical piece, the chip that helps connect all the final dots together. But Data's programming is so complex, it's basically figuring out these workarounds within the limitations that Soong put in there. So he still can't get past a certain mark, but he's adapting within the restrictions he's been given.
Is this not the ultimate example of AI learning and rewriting its own programming?
I'll tell you, an example is Chain of Command Part 2, where he's dressing down this lieutenant commander that's trying to argue with him about what to do.
Yeah, when you put in temporary command of the ship.
That's not Chain of Command. That's oh damn it.
Oh, that's
Redemption.
That's the Klingon lore. Redemption.
Oh, Redemption.
Yeah. It's Redemption Part 2. It's Redemption Part 2 is what that is. When they set up the big web. Yeah, that's like the first time you actually see Data without being. Well, yeah, but also in a situation where he's not being influenced by an outside source, and Data is clearly pissed off in that episode, which was great to see. Everybody loves that episode where he just smacks down that guy because of his bigotry towards him.
It happens so fast. As a matter of factly, it's all you can almost see the wheels turning in his head where he's comparing. Okay, this is what would happen if Picard was standing here listening to this guy. Picard would totally smack this guy down. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to totally smack him down. And I've got the rule book on. Did all that in of a second. He did all that, analyzed it all, and came up with a response to smack that guy down. So is that philosophical? Is that emotion, or is that just a quick access of?
I don't know. Isn't that what emotion can be for a human? It's your response to stimuli, based on your programming, as it were, the way you grew up, and all the influences that you had in your life. I mean, isn't a synthetic emotion still an emotion?
Possible. I mean, if it was an easy answer, we wouldn't be talking about it. That's what's fun about it.
Sure, of course. Yeah,
exactly. These questions.
Well, the question is are these things motivating Data, or is Data just responding to stimuli with like stimuli to get a reaction that he wants?
Yeah, you could make the argument that he got mad because he calculated that the best way to move forward was to get mad at this guy and dress him down so that he can assert his authority and they could move on.
However, I will point out that there is a difference here, because if you look at Gambit Part 2, where he dresses down Worf for doing almost the same fucking thing, except for just because Worf had a bee in his bonnet, it's almost like his approach to Worf is similar in the result, but a completely different approach than the way he deals with it. So it's like, we're talking about him adapting to a similar situation of his command authority being questioned and how he slaps it down. In fact, he feels, it's so funny how he's like passive aggressive about at the end of it, where he's like, I hope this hasn't ruined our friendship. And Worf gets all sad, which was hilarious to see. But it's like, I'm so sorry. I hope I haven't ruined our friendship, buddy. That's basically what Worf did. And when you look at the two ways of approaching this, and it's like, Data really learns, but it's like, it seems to me that he really learns, he even learns emotion is what I think. It's like when we're talking about this is true AI. It's constantly learning, and it even can learn emotions.
Question more is like, does he experience? It's not that so much that he might not experience whatever the version of emotions are for him. Whatever he experiences, we would call emotion. He doesn't have the emotional reactions that we display when we are pissed off or we are sad or we are happy. He processes the emotion, but it's just strictly as information, and then he makes a decision based on that. But it's not, he might be mad, but he's not going to break a window. He might be mad, he's not going to choke a guy. But he'll still convey the information that way, having processed it all, and goes, okay, the right response here is anger, so I'm gonna dress down this guy. But his voice never changes, his inflection never changes, his expression never changes. He's not controlled by emotional reactions. He might process the information.
Yeah, and Zen calls out that the whole point of Data dreaming was based on him actually achieving some kind of emotional unlock, and that was before the chip. And Ross calls out, isn't responding to stimulus a biological component as well? So what's the difference?
God, we could do a whole show on this alone.
Yeah. Indeed. Okay, some good debate there. We're going to do one more before we move on, and this is one I really liked. Star Trek's greatest hero is Rom.
There's an argument to be made for that.
There is. And the argument is that when you look at Star Trek's other heroes, they basically were already heroes. There wasn't much farther for them to go during the course of the series. But Rom started off as like this jerk, at the beginning, and he ended up, confronting his fears, stepping outside the mold, saving the galaxy with his gravitic minds. In terms of a hero's journey, he started lowest and ended up arguably highest as the Nagus. So What do you think, Rom? Greatest hero?
There's a point to be made. I mean, he's the guy that came up with the idea for mining the wormhole. He's a guy that very much was chosen to spy on the Dominion when the Federation was forced to retreat from DS9. He's far more than just the lovable doofus that so many like to think him as.
Yeah. Dayton, what do you think?
I think there's an argument there. As far as a heroic arc or a heroic journey, I think his is definitely the most expansive. It starts from the lowest of the low, and he ends up, basically in a position to reform an entire civilization. So, way to go. Way to level up, dude. I agree with this. I think that's a great one.
I think he's Star Trek's equivalent of Forrest Gump.
Oh, that's not. He just happened to be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, that's just coincidence.
He's a good guy. I think Rom went a bit further than that.
Well, I'm reminded of. By the way, I'm loving this idea, and I think I'm going to adopt it as my own because I think it's great. I'm reminded of Rom in the first episode of Deep Space Nine in the first season. And I'm reminded him. Then again, I'm reminded how he. That scene where he stood up to Quark for trying to cheat the test for Nog to get in the Starfleet Academy, and that was the first moment we saw the character of Rom. And then when Rom's in the holding cell for attempting to sabotage the station so they can't bring down the mines. And he's talking to Quark, trying to convince Quark that he needs to do it. And he says, but what if I get caught? And he says, then we'll stand together with our heads held high because we did the right thing. And that scene gave me such chills. And it was from fucking Rom of all people.
Yeah.
And then you go, and of course you take this further out, and it just keeps going, how he was eventually the chosen one to reform a Ferengi civilization. So I'm on Team Rom. # Team Rom. Yep.
All right, Team Rom. Okay, we're going to do one more just because I really like this one. I forgot about this one as I was scrolling through. Okay, this one is every Star Trek captain should probably be in prison. And they list a litany of terrible things.
Hell yeah.
Captain Kirk stealing the Enterprise in Star Trek 3. Voyager killing Tuvix. Archer torturing and acting as a pirate in his desperate mission in the Delphic Expanse. Cisco violating the Geneva Convention several times. So, true, false? What do you think?
So there's something
What's
on here.
Picard done?
They don't let's say anything Picard done, but there's something on here that I've said this before. Kirk should have been keel-hauled after the Wrath of Khan. And the reason why is because he ignored General Order 12, which, right? So if you think of the ranks of General Order is a pretty important thing. General Order 12 is the 12th one. I think Talos 7 was what, like General Order 6 or something? So he completely ignores General Order 12, doesn't raise shields, doesn't take a proactive stance there, and it causes the death of a midshipman. Right? Now, Dayton, you were in the Marines, right? And in any military service where the commanding officer ignored a standing general order and it caused the death of a junior officer, would that not lead to their court-martial?
There'd definitely be some disciplinary action of some court. There'd be some sort of inquiry, board of inquiry, and they'd figure out if they recommend charges or not. It wouldn't automatically be a court-martial. There'd be a board of inquiry to figure out what's the deal. So yeah, all the captains did something. I don't remember what would Picard be in prison for?
They didn't have one for Picard in the article, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Can you think of anything he did that was terrible?
Allowing the removal,
I guess, maybe
civilization from a planet that was dying instead of letting it take its natural course.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's that's why Star Trek is make believe. If we held them up to standards that we all that we base on real life, I don't know we'd ever get it right. But I mean, Janeway. I remember when Tuvix was a thing, and I remember thinking back in the day, the bold choice there would have been to keep Tuvix as a member of the crew and kill off Tuvok and Neelix. That would have been a ballsy move back then. There was no way they were going to do that. But if it had been me making that decision, I would have totally kept Tuvix, and jettisoned the other two guys. Just because it's a bold storytelling choice.
Right.
Exactly.
Or found a way to do some transporter mumbo jumbo and split him off into 3 separate people.
No, that makes it too easy.
That would have been a cop out. That would have been a cop out.
Cop out. I think it was. I think
is. It's
right.
a cop
I'm just
out.
saying, a ballsy choice would have been to keep
I
Tuvix.
agree with you.
And,
I like Tuvix.
The ballsy choice would have been to have had Tuvix run through like 3 or 4 episodes, right? And, and then have the dilemma of do you, and then have that and then have that be the moral dilemma.
Well, they kind of did the whole Tuvix storyline again back on Enterprise where they did the clone of Tucker.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
that's right.
Within 7 days.
Not because they had all the memories of the original Tucker, all the experiences of the original Tucker.
I think if Voyager was being written today, they would totally do something like that, Jason. They would at least milk it for a while and make us wonder what they were going to do.
Oh, not just make us wonder, but the point being is that after 4 or 5 episodes, you're connected to that character as part of the audience,
right?
And then now we're stuck with the same moral dilemma as Janeway is after 5 episodes. I remember the first time I saw Tuvix, I'm like, separate them. Yeah, this is like a no-brainer. Separate them. We got to get on the next week's episode. But had they done what Jason suggests, it would not have been so clear-cut for the audience. We'd be going through the same struggle that Janeway went through. We'd be mad at
the showrunner no matter what, because they were going to screw with our feelings. I mean, Shonda Rhimes would have totally done that. She would have milked this shit for and then she would have just stabbed us in the heart. The only reason I even brought that up is because my daughter.
If that Voyager episode had happened today, they would be calling for the boycott.
My daughter's watching Grey's Anatomy, and they just got to the episode where Patrick Dempsey's character exits the show. And my wife was pissed at that show because of what they did. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm just, I'm like, okay, but that's Shonda Rhimes, and she's notorious for making that hard left turn. So.
Shonda Land.
I've never watched Grey's Anatomy, but the complaint I hear from a lot of people is that that when instead of just letting a character go off gracefully, writing them out, they murder them unnecessarily. Is that the case with this show?
Well, I don't watch the show other than a few episodes I've watched with my daughter, and I just happened to watch that one. And that was if you were invested in that show, because I think it was like the 11th season where that happened.
Yeah, it was.
People were pissed at that, not just that the character died, but the way she chose to write him out was brutal. It was brutal.
Like the elevator shaft in LA.
No. It wasn't. The elevator shaft was at least quick. I mean, this was. They drew this out. I mean, they just was like, not only is he going to die, but we're going to make you feel it for 45 fucking minutes. And it's like, holy hell, man.
That's great.
Well, there's the delayed beat.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for your opinions on Star Trek's unpopular opinions. And we'll move on to our next topic. Really quick one. I wanted to take a note on the passing of Ben Cross, who was one of the now 3 actors who has played Spock's father, Sarek, who died. Of course, that was in the 2009 Star Trek. And he died this week at the age of 72, which he did not look that old. But of course, that was 11 years ago that movie came out. Anyway, so he passed away. I don't know if any of you have any thoughts or feelings on that, but I thought we should at least make note of it on the show.
Well, great actor and with an incredible career. When I realized that Ben Cross was going to be of course, let's not forget that he had a long genre career before this, before ever appearing on Star Trek. And
Chariots of Fire.
Chariots of Fire. Why am I drawing complete blank on the vampire series he was on?
Dark Shadows.
Dark Shadows. Thank you. But I thought he played Sarek so well in the films. I thought he was probably next to Carl Urban as McCoy, probably the best cast character for best cast actor for reprising these roles. So it's a shame a great talent that's no longer with us now because fuck 2020.
In that movie, 2009 movie, there's a criminally underrated scene, and it's right after Spock has given Kirk the beatdown. After Kirk triggered Spock's emotions of his mother's death. And Spock has left the bridge. He's gone to his quarters, and Sarek is right there. And they just have this little heart-to-heart, and he drops one of the best lines of the movie when he says, like, "You asked me once why I married your mother. I married her because I loved her." And as simple as a simple line as that is, it's just one of the absolute best lines of that entire movie, because it just not only does it show just the broad, like, complex nature of Vulcans, but I mean, it's just such a down-to-earth answer that is just very relatable. I mean, there really shouldn't be a complex reason for why Vulcan decided to marry a human. I mean, it's just a simple yes or no answer, and that's just always spoken to me personally rather well.
It's a great line for a couple of reasons. Number one, what you just said. It's a great line for him. It helps unlock a part of Sarek's psyche that we didn't get to see in previous iterations. But he's also giving a little piece of fatherly advice to Spock at the same line, because he's telling Spock it's okay for you to feel that way too about somebody.
Yes.
You don't have to bottle it up. You don't have to you don't have to pretend it or deny it. Accept that aspect of your character, of your nature. You're going to feel it, and you're going to feel it more powerfully than he did, because he's got his human heritage too. So he's like, go with it, roll with it. That's what he's telling him. And that one bit right there, he gives Spock permission to love, or doesn't give him permission, but he tells him you can love. There's nothing wrong with doing that. So that's a great little piece right there. It happens so quick. Like I said, it just sort of just gets lost in the shuffle really quickly. You almost miss it if you're not really paying attention, or maybe you use that as to go to the bathroom or something between action sequences.
Right. I really do love. I think every portrayal of the relationship between Sarek and Spock, I really love it. It's so good. It's one of the greatest parts of the Spock arc. No matter who it's been, whether it's been on Discovery with James Frank, whether it's been with Ben Cross, whether it's been with Mark
Leonard.
And even especially in Mark Leonard, even in the animated series, in yesteryear, it's amazing.
Indeed. Well, rest in peace, Ben Cross. Okay, let's move ahead, because we're going out of time, and we'll move to our final segment of the evening, final official segment, because of course we do the after show, which is always, what is it, Justin?
Florida Man.
Right, Florida Man. But it is our What Are We Watching segment, where we find out what we've been watching recently that we would recommend to other folks. So, Dayton, since you've lasted this long, why don't you tell us what you've been watching?
Let's see. Well, I mean, thanks to the apocalypse and we're all at home. We've been at home forever. My wife and I watched a show on Netflix called Ozark, which, if you're not familiar with it,
good one.
So we had not watched it before this past spring, and so we binged all, 3 or 4 seasons that they've got now. So we binged them all right, one after the other. It is one of the coolest shows I have ever watched. Jason Bateman is just so on point in this show, and every time I think they're going to zig right, they zig left, and they keep me guessing. And the way they ended the 4th season is just bonkers, and I cannot wait to see with their 5th and final season. I'm like, bring that shit on right now.
They have 1 season left, right? Because it's canceled after this next one.
I think they just decided to run its course, but they left it hanging in such a way that I'm like, bring that to me now. I'm tired of waiting. So
it's funny because the end of that final scene, it's like it's one of those things where we all saw it coming. We just couldn't believe it happened when we saw it.
Right. It's like, yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But looking at it, when you see it, you're like, well, that was actually inevitable if I stop and think about it. But it happened so fast and so, just right in your
right. Exactly. Yeah.
face. You're like, oh, I didn't expect him to do it then, and then just go to credits and I got to wait. So
3 seconds.
Right, yeah, we're all pissed off. Yeah.
Interesting aside, Netflix actually reversed its renewal of 2 very successful shows this week because of COVID-19. The show The Society, and about a bunch of high school kids transported to the facsimile of their hometown, and they have to figure out how to eat and govern themselves and so forth. And it's kind of dark, especially near the end. And I was very much looking forward to a season 2. There will now be no season 2 because of the production delay, thanks to the coronavirus. And they didn't feel like there was any way they could logistically, with all the different, because it's a huge cast, that they would realistically be able to, get all their schedules aligned again, because they were supposed to start shooting again this fall. And that's currently not happening.
I wonder how many others are going to suffer the same fate.
It could happen. Even so, Netflix still has quite a not backlog, but quite a few shows that have yet to premiere. So they've got a lot of content still to see us through for a bit. Okay, who wants to go next? Jason?
If I could go next, because I got to get out of here.
Oh, sure. Go ahead, Shawn.
Okay, so there's 2 big things I've watched this week. The series called Norseman. I don't know if you've seen it. It's been probably recommended to you a million times on Netflix. I was explaining this. It's a comedy about Vikings, and it's basically kind of in the spirit of Game of Thrones. Yet, but if it was The Office, I'm not kidding.
Okay.
And it is absolutely brutal Viking stuff, but it's like it's so much The Office. What's incredibly interesting about this, like they knew they had a good thing with this show because it's filmed in Norway with Norwegian actors. But what they did was they shot each scene twice, once in English and once in Norwegian, because they had this notion that we're going to get international distribution of this. This is a really good idea we got here, and their English is so perfect that and it just works so incredibly well. It's very Monty Python like in its humor. So it's almost so.
Which channel is this on?
This is Netflix. It's called Norseman.
Okay.
So I highly recommend it.
I've seen the previews for that. It looks good.
Yeah, they're 30-minute episodes. It's got 3 seasons, and I think there's 6 episodes each season. A new limited series just dropped a couple of days ago called High Score. It's basically a video game history series, and it's a lot of fun. If you enjoy the Toys That Made Us, very much in the style of the Toys That Made Us, but it's a little bit more linear. It doesn't just focus on one thing per episode. So it's kind of like you gotta watch it like the timeline through the 6 episodes, and it says it's a limited series, but dude, they stopped like in 1993. So I gotta imagine they're gonna keep.
That's
this
very
going.
limited.
Yeah, I mean, right? It's like there were video games after 1993, but it's very good, very very much enjoyable. So those are my 2 big things.
All right, awesome, Jason.
All right, guys. Good
night.
Take it easy, Shawn.
Good night, Shawn. Thanks. Put on some pants, you bum.
Unlikely. Bye-bye.
It's time for my annual rewatch of The West Wing. So
I thought you just
doing.
finished it. I thought you just finished your annual rewatch.
Well,
no, that was the end of the podcast. You got to the end of the podcast.
Yeah, I got to the end of the podcast. So the
Okay,
end of the podcast I did back in January, but it's time for my annual rewatch. So I'm probably about a quarter of the way through. So I think I'm right about the end of season 2. So we're about to break into the Bartlett MS storyline and all that fun stuff. So reelect, and so I just love the show, and it do
you have a favorite episode?
Probably Shibboleth.
Mine. Oh, that's a good one. Mine is 2 Cathedrals.
Yeah, I mean,
when he gets pissed off at God.
Yeah, I mean, you know my politics, but I still wish that like we could have President Bartlett.
Yeah, indeed.
I like 17 People. That was that's probably my favorite. Where
Which
Toby
one was that
finds
one?
out. That's the one where Toby finds out about Bartlett's MS.
And Richard Schiff is such an incredible actor.
He's amazing.
And to see
Basically
that,
a play.
It is a play, and it is, you know, and again, like if you haven't watched the show, or if you just watched the show and you haven't listened to the West Wing Weekly, I really recommend. The podcast is wrapped now, but I really recommend you go through and do a watch of the show along with the podcast. It adds so much value to what you're seeing and the experience, and so
simultaneously or the podcast after the episode.
I would do the episode and listen to podcasts.
Okay.
For that particular episode, Josh Molina and Rishi K. Sherway are incredible hosts, probably some of the best in the business. So,
all right, excellent. Stalwart Justin.
I have not actually really been watching much this week. I just started watching season 2 of the Umbrella Academy. Lucifer season 5 just dropped today, so I'm going to be watching that to get caught up on that one. Yeah, that's pretty much about it. It's that and playing War Thunder video games, but I know that video games bores you to death, so
I don't know why you think that. Just kidding. Okay, and Travis.
I've watched a few things. Right now I'm actually currently working on another month-long countdown in the Star Trek group. I am going to be ranking the top 30 scariest / creepiest episodes of the franchise. So I'm watching a whole bunch of very silly horror-esque Star Trek episodes right now. I'm not a big horror guy, so a lot of these I will probably be heckling the shit out of. But I also, thankfully, after months of waiting, we have finally resumed our watch of Breaking Bad, and we finished the second season recently. So that was a lot of fun.
I can't believe you waited so long.
Well, we're like doing this like roommate watch party thing, and one of the roommates was quarantining outside the house for the longest time. He recently moved back in, and so we decided let's get back into it, and we finally did, and we're having fun there. And the final thing that I watched, and it was absolutely magical, we watched it tonight, is a film called Twisted Pair, and it's by this guy. You may have heard of him. His name is Neil Breen, and he is a big name in the so bad that it's good category. I have no idea how to describe this fucking film that I watched. It's like it involves two twin brothers, both who are played by Neil Breen. And they like have these superpowers, but they don't. I don't know. All I can really say is that there is a lot of like emotionless voiceovers and like dialogue that thinks it sounds really deep, but it's not. And there's like some very disturbing, like there's a scene in the movie where Neil Breen's character bumps into a woman and he tries to make it up. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Here, let me help you up." And like the woman's just kind of freaked out, and he's like, "Oh, just let me make it up to you. Let me take you out to dinner. Let me take you for a drink." And she just kind of like runs away, like freaked out. And later on in the movie, he sees her again and follows her home and enters her house, and they get into a fight before they start laughing. And I'm just like, what the fuck am I watching? This is terrifying. We were laughing quite a bit. This is definitely a gem. If you ever
say the title again,
it's called Twisted Pair, like Pair. And
Travis is animated. You know it has to be good.
And apparently, there's a sequel coming.
Oh God!
I kid you not. Like, this is on the Wikipedia page. The film has a Wikipedia page. Neil Breen is working on a sequel, and during the credits, he does a Marvel this character will return, and I was very much like, oh my god. It was quite the religious experience, I will say that much.
Was that you, Justin? Okay. That was your horror scream. Okay, I did not get a chance to watch a lot of TV this week because I'm still getting my new house in order, but I did watch the Democratic Convention this week, and I won't go into politics other than to say this. If you did not cry when you listened to that 12-year-old kid talk about how he was working to overcome his stuttering because Joe Biden advised him and was really nice to him and gave him tips and everything, then you are not a human being, because that was
the only part I watched. Really?
Well,
that was the only part I actually watched.
it was great. Like you know, because he still stutters, obviously, but he was doing this thing in national television, and it was very courageous. And so every time he stutters, you're just like, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it. And he just keeps going forward. He doesn't let it stop him. And it was very inspiring. And yeah, I don't care what stripe of politics you are. That's an inspirational story. And then the other thing I watched was on Netflix, and that's I guess you'd call it a science fiction movie called The Power Project, that's gotten a bit of hype recently on Netflix, and it's about these little pills that you take one and you get superpowers for 5 minutes after you take them.
I've seen the promo for that too. That looks good. Yeah,
it's okay. There were parts of it that were really good. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who knew he could be a badass, but he is. The acting in it is really good. At some point, it just becomes sort of a formula drug running kind of movie, but the subplots actually are much better than the main plot once you get to that part of the film. But it was fun watching, especially seeing some of the weird superpowers they gave him, and also the powers are based on actual abilities that animals have to do certain things, thermoregulation and super growth and super strength, etc. So that's kind of what they based it on. So that was an interesting scientific aspect of it. So, but that was it for me this week. I'll try to do better next week.
Do better, Carlos. Do better.
Thank you, Justin. I will try. I won't let you down. I won't let you down. Dayton, thank you again for joining us for the whole show. It was great to have you here. Hope you come back. Good luck on your.
Do this again sometime.
Yeah, indeed. And
we will make sure Carlos is on time this time.
Yeah, really sorry. I even started getting ready early for the show, and I was like, "Oh, the stupid computer!"
Food early. So you don't have this situation.
Well, I was doing it early. Anyway, enough of that. And we will finish off the show with our unofficial final segment, which is Florida Man, where we talk about funny stories in the news involving people from Florida. We won't make you submit to it, Dayton.
Son has hooked us up. She has in the comments. If
she's got it. I read them all. I'm like, I used to live there. All that's normal. That's like a typical Friday. So,
okay.
All right. You guys take care.
All right. Thanks again, Dayton. Best of luck.
All right. Bye-bye.
Are we ready?
All right.
Well,
all right. Are you ready, Justin?
Show myself out because I don't really care for Florida Man too much. So I will just say it's warp time, and I will see you guys next week.
All right.
It's warp time.
Engage, Travis. And he's off.
All right. You ready?
Yeah. He's the right one.
Florida man arrested for cashing in winning lottery ticket at gas station he stole it from.
Florida man.
I just live for hearing you say that, Justin.
Florida man involved in DUI golf cart crash claims President Trump drove him to drink.
I believe that.
I believe it. I
Okay.
Florida man uses COVID-19 in defense of domestic violence case.
Well, there you go.
Man.
Florida man arrested after fighting neighbor over Biden campaign sign, deputies say.
Florida man.
Where are we at? Florida man leaves hospital, stabs county attorney to death.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, Florida man.
Homeless Florida man caught living camping out in stadium's luxury suite.
Oh, I saw that one last week. Yeah.
I think that's it for this
That's
week.
it for this week. Sun says Jacksonville, Florida man, store owner has to tell people to stop warming up pee in his microwave. What the hell? What the hell?
He must be next to a LabCorp.
Let's see.
Justin, I got to hear you say Florida pee.
Florida pee.
Florida man trio wore GPS ankle monitors while burglarizing dozens of homes.
Another one, Clearwater, Florida man steals scratch-off ticket from store, tries to cash winning ticket at same place. Wait, isn't that the one that you just did?
Yep.
Okay, so did we do... No, we did that one. We did that one. Florida man tries to wear ankle monitors while burglarizing dozens of homes. Oh, and I did that with the scores on Florida man.
There you go. All right. Well, I think that's our Florida man quota for this week. Thanks, guys, for all your wit and wisdom this week on the show. And we will, of course, be back next week with still more Super Geeks talk. And for the folks at home watching, thanks for joining us. And we'll see you in a week.
Bye-bye, everybody. Hang on just a second. Let me exit out and remove destination from broadcast. Remove. And done. Switch is off and remove. And